part of it, right?
It's a little minimum. I have the two big ones. I said, no, just bring me this tiny one. All right. All right.
Thank you. I just don't want to.
Okay, we're gonna get started, guys.
I'll keep looking for cough drops for you.
We're good. I have a water. Does anybody? Yeah,
I'll take it.
yeah, take a water. I can always get another one. Okay. Getting ready to get started so we can keep the train running on time. I'm going to try to be a good timekeeper, and you know, we'll roll with it. But I'm just going to give everybody a moment to settle in, and then, all right, I'm going to call the People's Hearing of Austin to order. It is 9:17 a.m. And I want to say good morning, everyone. Buenos dias. Welcome to the Austin People's Hearing on Threats to Diversity and Academic Freedom in Higher Education. Can everybody hear me okay? Trying to use a mic, but I also have an outside voice, I hope. I'm Lulu Flores, and I represent District 51 here in Austin, and I represent South, East, and Southeast Travis County. I appreciate everybody who was able to come here today, and to those who will participate by speaking later on the program. Joining me here on the dais are four other Texas State representatives. I have Representative Cheryl Cole, who's here from Austin also. She represents District 46, and she's also east, but north of my district. We have Dr. Mary Gonzalez here from District 75 in El Paso. We have Dr. Suleiman Lalani from District 76 in Fort Bend County outside of Houston. And we have Representative Cristina Morales from District 145 in Houston. And I want to thank everyone, and especially thank the members here who are in the Progressive Caucus, some of us, and who are here taking time from their very busy schedules to hear about the important issues that we'll be discussing here today. I want to recognize a former Senator Gonzalo Barrientos in the audience, who's also here with us. Appreciate your presence. Thank you, and your guidance over the years. I'd like to thank the members of my staff for their work in getting this event going, as well as Max Gannon of the Texas Legislative Progressive Caucus for sharing his experience and expertise with them in putting this hearing together. I also want to thank members of the Latino Coalition for Excellence in Higher Education, particularly Dr. Emilio Zamora, Alicia Perez Hodge, and Maria del Carmen Unda. This organization was formed only recently, came together over concerns regarding political pressure on academic institutions. It was they who suggested this topic for the Austin People's Hearing, and they have played an important role in putting together this hearing that we're having today. By way of introduction, I'd like to set the stage and give us some background on what has brought us here today. Last September, a classroom discussion between a student and a senior lecturer at Texas A&M made headlines. The student recorded the discussion in which she disagreed with the instructor's explanation that gender identity, gender expression, and sexuality are three different things. The recording caused an online brouhaha. When the dust settled, the university had canceled the class, fired the instructor, and demoted the college dean and department chair. In January of this year, Texas A&M interim president Tommy Williams eliminated the university's degree program in women and gender studies. The next month, the University of Texas at Austin, President Jim Davis announced that 4 departments, African American and African Diaspora Studies, American Studies, Mexican American and Latina Studies, and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies will be consolidated into one department to be called Social and Cultural Analysis. This might seem like an arcane bit of academic administration, but it will have a tremendous effect on the content of what researchers are able to study and what students are allowed to learn. The content and approaches of these disciplines are distinct from one another, and it's going to be difficult for any future department head to chart a direction for this hybrid entity in which one group of scholars or another does not feel like they're getting the short end of the stick. And in a more tangible nuts and bolts sense, there's every reason to think that the new department will not command the same amount of resources as 4 departments did. As time goes on, it is quite likely that the presence of each of these disciplines at UT will shrink. It is not unreasonable to assume that this consolidation is an intentional precursor to the elimination of some of those disciplines at UT Austin. Indeed, in a final example, we have seen that a faculty member from one of these departments was denied tenure for no discernible reason. Ivan Char Lopez is an assistant professor in the Department of American Studies at UT Austin who studies U.S. border enforcement. He was met with nothing but success in his career and was overwhelmingly approved for tenure by his department and college level tenure review committees, but the president's promotion and tenure committee denied him tenure. Professor Lopez was never given a reason for the higher level committee overturning the positive decisions that had been made before. There are many other examples of these things at Texas universities, but what they have in common is 2 things. First, they are part of a systematic attack on academic freedom and diversity. These issues only seem to come up for scholars who study and teach about race, ethnicity, gender, and sexuality. These can be controversial issues, but silencing voices is not a good way to deal with controversy. And higher education is one of the places that our society has specifically designated to allow for the free play of ideas. Restricting the ability of scholars to discuss certain topics or keeping those scholars out of the university itself is nothing short of censorship. Second, though, is that many would see these incidents as example of the inappropriate influence of political power on what should be the prerogative of university faculty and administration. One of the main reasons for this hearing today is to explore this possibility and learn about how political and administrative actions are affecting students, faculty, and administration. Perhaps the most influential action the Texas legislature in this regard is a piece of legislation passed last session called SB 37. The law significantly expands the power of politically appointed university regents at the expense of faculty senates and requires those appointees to review every course in a university's general education curriculum according to a very vague set of standards. Faculty have reported that implementation of this review process has allowed for the context of their courses to be changed over their own objections, often in line with conservative political priorities. At UT Austin, the Board of Regents approved a policy that essentially bans what they have called controversial subjects from the university's courses. The result there is likely to be that professors will be censoring themselves rather than running the risk that their courses may be labeled as controversial. So that brings us here. Last month, the Senate Higher Education Committee held a hearing to monitor SB 37. That committee only featured invited testimony and the only invitees were university administrators and political appointees. Unsurprisingly, the tone of the hearing was generally positive. Indeed, the Texas Tribune reported that the members of the committee appeared to want to strengthen the law. But today's people hearing is going to be different from that. We have invited testimony, but it will be from faculty, students, and those who have concerns that the current political environment is harming the pursuit of knowledge in Texas rather than strengthening it. I would like to point out that we did invite UT President Jim Davis and Texas Commissioner of Higher Education Wynn Rosser to testify at the hearing today, and they both declined to appear. And unlike the Senate Higher Education Committee, we look forward to hearing from you, the public. Before I begin, I would like to invite any members of my distinguished panel to share any opening remarks that they might wish to make. So I will Open it up.
I am State Representative Christina Morales. It was important for me to come all the way from Houston, Texas, to be a part of this hearing today. Muchísimas gracias for having me. It's important that we listen to the people. Thank you to my colleague Lulu Flores for putting this together. I have University of Houston downtown in my district and several campuses of Houston City College. So it's important to me. But another thing that I've been trying to work on for the last several sessions that I've been a part of is passing a bill where ethnic studies would be accessible to every public high school student. We made history. Not only me, people in this room who I've met along the way. We passed it one session in the House, and we got really close to passing it in the Senate. The work continues, and I just want to remind everybody to think about this hearing today. In November, we need changes. Gracias.
Good morning. My name is Cheryl Cole, and I'm the representative from House District 46, which is East Austin, east of 35, starting at 7th Street and going north to Pflugerville and east to Manor. Houston-Tilson is in my district, and I've worked real hard to try to have a caucus for higher education for Black universities, and we've worked on that. The recent activity at the University of Texas has been alarming, and I stand here today in solidarity with my colleagues and especially give thanks to Lulu Flores for putting this together to hear from the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you. Good morning. First of all, thank you, Representative Lulu Flores, for getting us all together, especially the faculty, the students, and everybody who is going to testify today on this timely subject. I'm Dr. Suleiman Lalani. I'm a state representative for House District 76, which is in Fort Bend County. And I wanted to be here because I want to share that we are all in it together. As a physician, I've learned that you have to have a knowledge of science and compassion to listen to the patient to make the diagnosis and heal them. Same thing when I got elected in public policy. You need to have engagement, but you need to connect with your constituents and listen to them. So I'm here to listen to you all today. I am also a vice chair for the Land and Resource Committee and a senior member of higher education. So I really wanted to hear from you and take it back to our committee that is going to meet us soon. So thank you so much, and I am here to listen to you.
Buenos dias, good morning. My name is Mary Gonzalez. I represent the eastern part of El Paso County, so 500 miles away. I am currently serve as vice chair of the Appropriations Committee and on Natural Resources Committee, but also I'm a professor. I look around the room and I see people who have literally changed my life, and I'm so grateful. A graduate of CMAS, the Center for Mexican American Studies, and graduate of the PhD program in Cultural Studies. I've seen firsthand how has it changed people's lives, not only mine, but my classmates, the people that we work with, the communities that we serve. And so it is heartbreaking to know that for decades, our people fought to have these programs, literally fought to have these programs, and they're being dismantled so quickly. I think that it is a hard political battle at the Capitol, having now served 15 years. Can you believe it, Dr. Valenzuela? 15 years. Yeah, I don't either. It is such a fascinating journey to see how the legislature was once in partnership with higher ed and now is in conflict. And it's not an accident. There are intentional reasons that this is all happening. And it calls on us to be more in community, to break down the silos between legislative spaces and academia, to break down the silos between students and professors and legislators. All the silos need to be broken because the only way to resist what's happening is in a collective way. And so I really appreciate the time and energy for everyone who's here. And this is just the beginning, I think, of a larger effort to do, to resist and challenge and hopefully win, right? Win for the next generation of students who deserve to have these conversations.
Thank you to all the panelists. Can everybody hear me okay? We're going to now move on, but I also wanted to say that I knew Mary when she was a student, a graduate student, and she served on some of my panels at the university. I was on the board of the Leadership Texas, which taught young women leadership skills. And also I was a member of the Women and Gender Studies Advisory Board for many, many years. So I just appreciate everybody's remarks and everybody being here. In a minute, we're going to begin the invited testimony, but let me do a little housekeeping first and explain the process. First, we'll have the invited testimony, then we'll have our public testimony. We'll follow that. Any audience members who wishes to testify should be sure to check with staff at the table to make sure that you're signed up. Even if you signed up online, you should just need to make sure you check in with the staff so we will get your name and we can call you up. Please note that the public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes. We're going to have our invited witnesses have 5 minutes each to speak, and then we'll have some Q&A for each of them. And I'm going to bring up the panels in 2 panels of 3. I first want to check to see if Rogelio Sainz made it. Oh my God, that seemed like a really treacherous travel, and thank you for that. So first now I'm going to bring up the first panel, and on that we'll have Rogelio Sainz, Brian Evans, and Antonio Ingram. Can you all please come up to the front? Okay, I'm going to ask each of the witnesses to identify themselves for the record and their name and any relevant affiliation. It's important for witnesses to understand that their affiliation would be a group that they're representing with this testimony. If you're not speaking on behalf of a particular organization, then do not list it as an affiliation for this context. So I'm going to first call on Rogelio Sainz, and could you please state your name and affiliation for the record?
Yes, good morning. I am Rogelio Sainz, and I'm
Is that microphone working? Can everybody hear? Oh, you have to press the button at the bottom. It's on?
It's on? Let's see.
Okay, you just hold it a little
all
closer.
right.
Thank you.
My name is Rogelio Sainz, and I'm a sociologist and demographer.
Thank you. And go ahead and proceed.
So thank you for the invitation. And I've been working in the field of higher education. This is my 40th year, this year that I'm starting, 25 at Texas A&M and then 15 at UTSA. I, along with many of my colleagues, have been working very hard throughout our careers, trying to make our students excel and to complete their degrees to become productive members of the state and the larger society. However, over the last few years, there has been a major decimation of the pillars that have supported traditionally and nourished student success for Latino, African Americans, and other students of color. And we've seen that students can no longer study and learn about the communities and cultures and histories from where they originate. In essence, there has been an erasing of much of what we, as many of us, faculty, students, staff, and alumni value in the training and preparation of students. This eradication has occurred in the midst of demographic shifts of the nation's population, in which Latinos, African Americans, and other people of color represent the largest segment of the state population. And there's a variety of things that are going on, as we know, to try to undo those demographic shifts, take us back to an earlier period where that was not the case. We see it with mass deportations. We see it with the attempts to end birthright citizenship and a wide variety of other factors. And we also see it in terms of trying to take back the success that students of color have achieved back to an earlier period of time. And we see it then with the end of DEI programs, but also the more recent attempt to end Head Start through deregulation and so forth. And so what I want to do is turn to an overview of the changing demographic landscape of Texas based on my analysis of the 2024 American Community Survey. And as you can see in figure 1, and one of the things with the American Community Survey is that only Latinos and whites we are able to distinguish them in the published data on the basis of non-Hispanic. So there is a residual category of all other groups that are non-whites as well. So we can see that with the case of the Latino population, Latinos are the largest ethnic group in K through 12 with about 49%. And these are all not necessarily public schools, but all students enrolled. And then in undergraduate enrollment where they represent 41%. If you take Latinos as well as the other groups that are the non-white categories, we also see that these are the majority in many respects. These are students that are being shortchanged through the ending of race and ethnic studies programs that have traditionally incorporated their experiences, their cultures, their histories in their educational training and educational success. If students cannot see themselves in the educational curriculum, there is a strong message that they do not matter. And moreover, the map that I produced also shows, again, with the Latino population, that there are 103 counties all over the state where about 2 out of every 5 counties where Latinos represent the majority. And these are situated in South, West, and the Panhandle, along with the metropolitan areas of Houston, Dallas, and Fort Worth. And then we also see that in addition, with an aging population alongside white low fertility, we see that white students have been decreasing in K through 12, for example. Only 57 counties experienced increases in the share of whites among K through 12 students over the last 10 years, while Latinos, 178 counties that increased, as well as 157 for other groups. And then the last figure that I won't go into details provides the future, what it looks like, and we'll see the white population, for example, projected to decrease from about 30% to 21%, while people of color continue to be the large majority in K through 12. And with that, I'll end. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going to ask, would the panel prefer to ask questions individually or just wait till the panel is finished? Okay, great. That's what I had planned. So we'll do it that way. So next I'm going to call Professor Brian Evans. Would you please state your name and affiliation for the record?
Yes, thank you for inviting me today. So my name is Brian Evans and I'm speaking as a private citizen. For the last 3 years, I've served as the president of the Texas American Association of University Professors, or AAUP, which is part of the Texas American Federation of Teachers, or AFT. For the last 30 years, I've been a faculty member at UT Austin, where I'm a tenured professor of engineering and former faculty senate president, but again, speaking for myself as a private citizen. So I'm testifying today about concerns over censorship in the curriculum, research, and healthcare at our public colleges, universities, and health institutions. I hope higher education administrators in the next legislative session will address these concerns positively. Our 1.4 million students and hundreds of thousands of faculty and staff are counting on it. Today, I'll focus on public universities, but similar issues are occurring in our community colleges. In the age of AI, employers value people who can do what computers can't, think creatively, empathize, collaborate, and adapt. Many students will enter careers that don't even exist yet, making the freedom to learn more important than ever. Free inquiry, expression, exploration, and dissent drive learning and innovation. and depend on faculty and staff having the freedom to teach, mentor, advise, and research without institutional censorship. I am not aware of any state or federal laws banning specific topics and courses at Texas public colleges and universities. Neither SB 17 in 2023 nor SB 37 in 2025 does. Yet public universities are censoring course topics, readings, and discussions. At least five Texas public university systems have restricted the teaching of topics related to race, gender, gender identity, and sexual orientation. Administrators are using automated reviews to flag thousands of course syllabi, requiring instructors to remove content or risk course cancellation. Texas A&M banned Plato's Symposium in a philosophy course. Texas Tech system policies led to banning Plato's Republic, withholding race-related information from first-year law students studying Dred Scott versus Sanford, and barring medical education on treating racial and sexual minorities at health science campuses. Texas Tech censored content in biology classes. Many instructors self-censor to avoid having their courses flagged. Consider a student wanting to discuss a topic that is banned or might be banned by their institution. What does the instructor do? They can moderate the discussion and risk their job. They can leave the classroom and miss the student's analyses and lose the ability to ensure a safe learning environment, or they can censor the discussion, shut it down. None of these options protects the freedom to learn and teach. Universities are also limiting students' freedom to learn by eliminating degrees, courses, and entire departments related to race, gender, gender identity, and climate change. Universities are removing choices for core curriculum courses required for every major, and even discontinuing low-cost minors and certificates. This is affecting faculty recruiting and retention. Faculty recruiting and retention take place in a national marketplace. Faculty value the widely adopted AAUP principles of academic freedom and their safeguards of shared governance, due process, and tenure. In 2023, SB 18 weakened tenure and due process safeguards. An August 2024 survey found too few applicants for Texas faculty positions and more than a quarter of faculty having interviewed for jobs in other states. Key reasons for leaving include concerns about academic freedom, shared governance, tenure, and salary. In 2025, SB 37 limited shared governance by expanding administrative control over curriculum and faculty senates. In the past 3 years, 130 AAUP members left Texas for out-of-state faculty positions because of institutional censorship or state laws affecting their ability to do their jobs. This summer, Professor Lisa Limery resigned her tenured position at Texas Tech due to censorship of her biology classes. The cumulative effect is a loss of talented faculty and their innovation, a threat to Texas competitiveness and national reputation, and critically, an incomplete education for students entering a competitive job market. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Right on time. Thank you so much for that testimony. Mr. Ingram, would you please state your name and affiliation for the record, please?
Thank you for having me. My name is Antonio Ingram, and I currently serve as senior counsel at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Founded in 1940 under the leadership of Thurgood Marshall, the Legal Defense Fund's mission has always been transformative to achieve racial justice, equality, and an inclusive society. Most Americans know about our historic litigation in the U.S. Supreme Court decision, Brown v. Board of Education. However, before Brown v. Education in 1954, we litigated and won Sweatt v. Painter, decided by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1950. In Painter, we represented a Black law student right here in Austin, Texas. The University of Texas School of Law rejected our client solely because he was Black. As a result of our litigation, we integrated the law school here in Austin. Throughout the years, our organization has continued to represent students of color in Texas to ensure that they receive quality and equitable educational opportunities. Through my advocacy, I have visited over 25 public colleges and universities across Texas. I have met with professors teaching Chicano studies at UT Austin. I have talked to medical school faculty training future doctors at Texas Tech Health El Paso. I've met with faculty and students studying Black political theory at the University of Houston. I have witnessed firsthand the effects of the concerted effort in Texas to attempt to ban discussions about race, racism, and systemic inequality over the last few years. I am currently leading the lawsuit against Chancellor Creighton and the Texas Tech Board of Regents. The leadership of the Texas Tech system has censored literature about Chicano communities and banned course materials from well-respected Black scholars like Bell Hooks and Ta-Nehisi Coates. When we look at the censorship that is sweeping higher education in Texas, it is important to note who is being targeted. We must expose who are the primary targets of this censorship. What we see in Texas is an attack on Black and brown communities. Curriculum which chronicles our struggles and curriculum posing solutions to our obstacles are under attack. I'm reminded about our case, Painter. While public universities across Texas may not be able to legally exclude Black and brown bodies from classrooms in explicit ways, discrimination against Black and brown students and faculty is not dissipated. It has merely mutated. Now, it looks like Senate Bill 17 leading to the closure of the Monarch program at UT Austin, a program designed to provide resources to undocumented students who were disproportionately Latino. Now it looks like the University of Houston removing over 100 courses from its core curriculum, including courses like Black liberation theology. While Texas politicians cannot legally exclude Black and brown bodies from higher education, there's an attempt to shut down dedicated spaces to increase in our retention. While they cannot reestablish racial segregation, there's an attempt to exile curriculum reflecting our stories. We cannot ignore the elephant in the room. This is not just about the First Amendment. It is not just about unprecedented government encroachment in Texas public colleges and universities. It is about whose voices are targeted. It is about whose spaces are being shut down. It is about whose stories are being erased from classrooms. The evidence speaks for itself. It is Black and brown students. It is Black and brown professors who are teaching accurate and inclusive coursework. We have an uphill battle, but we must work to educate these new permutations of racial discrimination to fight against people who are trying to enact discrimination on our campuses. Not only do Black and brown students belong in the classroom, our stories, our ideas, and our souls also deserve a seat in the halls of the academy. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Members, I'm going to open it up to you all to ask any questions that you'd like. Who wants to go first? Anybody?
Kick it off again. So for any one of you, these institutions were never built with communities in mind. For example, students of color, LGBTQ students, students with disabilities, and they have fought their way to get into these spaces. So when our state is dismantling these institutions and making it harder, what message does that send to the students who are walking on this campus today?
You got your mic.
I'll say a few comments. I think that one is that they're not welcome, and that they're not important for as a part of those particular institutions. And we see the level of support and that students had before, when there were programs for each of these students that have always been marginalized, but even more so today. And their success depends very heavily on making sure that they have those supportive environments.
I am particularly concerned about the exodus of faculty because of the university's failure to properly consider diverse viewpoints. Can you comment to that a little more, Professor Brian Evans, and our rankings in the national perspective?
Well, so first, what we're seeing, again, in at least 5 of the 7 public university systems is just a ban on certain topics, and these topics are across the curriculum. They're not just in liberal arts, they're across STEM fields as well. It's the whole gamut of education being affected, ideas being shut down, can't discuss it. So what do they do when they go off and need to go study, medicine or, or law or whatever? There'll be deficits in their preparation for those advanced degrees. There's also deficits in how they learn to interact and deal with other and collaborate with a lot of different people and backgrounds, at the university and the community colleges. So this is going to hurt recruiting. It's going to hurt long-term careers, right? The students are just not getting that first job. They have a career to navigate. So by shutting down all these different topics, which are really about being human, right? We all have race, we all have an ethnicity, we have a gender, we have a gender identity. All this it's just being human. That discussion's being shut down and stifled across our public universities. So this is just, students will be less prepared for their long-term careers.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. I have a question for each of you, actually, and I'll be quick and concise. Professor Sines, do you feel that the community around UTSA, so community leaders, Latino community leaders, are getting involved and talking to the president and or the chancellors of the UT system to kind of continue to put pressure? I think finding coalitions, maybe not just in academia, might be critical at this moment. Do you see that happening?
I think that there has been some attempts to try to talk about the problems associated with these kinds of programs, but I'm not aware specifically on efforts that are underway.
I think I've just been thinking about when immigrant students were protected, a lot of that came from the business community, to be honest, and that was a really powerful action. And I think as academics, how can we do community engagement work with outside groups to put pressure on the local presidents and or like I could even see all the superintendents from the 20 Sanelli, oh my God, having a coffee, San Antonio school districts with the president and saying like this, we're concerned about some of these things, or the chancellor, right?
Yeah, I think that the business community has always played an important role. You see it even in with the mass deportations. Certain leaders of construction industries, for example, how much it's hurting them. And you can see here with respect to the issue of these programs that are being cut and so forth, how you have students of color really represent the future of the state of Texas in terms of our future college students, our future workforce, our future consumers, and so forth. And that is extremely important. And their education is being shortchanged because of not having the supportive kinds of environments.
I'd be interested in supporting y'all and working through some of those coalition buildings and setting up meetings with regents or chancellors or presidents and thinking through how they can hear messages from different constituencies.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Brian, I love you. You're wonderful, and I appreciate all the work you do. I guess I hadn't heard that number of the 130 AAUP members. I guess my question is, knowing that data, sharing the data with other legislators, if you were sitting in my position, what kind of, I mean, let's just be more transparent. Yes, in a perfect world, we would get rid of SB 37 and we would get rid of all, but like maybe we don't live in that world right now, and elections do matter, so that's a big deal. But if things were to not change, what kind of legislation do you think would at least lessen negative impact in a political reality situation? Yeah.
Well, there are several things. One is in SB 18, get rid of summary dismissals. These are fast track, immediate terminations without due process. You get the due process after you've been separated from the university. That was put in SB 18. It was in no university policy in the state. It came out of nowhere, and that is horrible. And yes, faculty have been summarily dismissed, and they get their due process afterwards. They get their hearing after they've been separated and fired. In SB 17, we asked several times for scholarships to be excluded. We asked for research and research funding to be excluded. That has not happened. So there have been bans on scholarships that have Hispanic student scholarships or whatever. that are simply banned at UT Austin. Those cannot be discussed. They can't be disseminated. And SB 17 has a clear exception for academic course instruction, but there are university systems that said, no, it doesn't. So University of North Texas system says, no, it doesn't. And they started censoring content back in fall of 2024 on the basis of SB 17, publicly stated. Okay, so first off, we could just remove, if I could repeal SB 17.
Yes.
And SB 18 would be great. But this SB 17 has a chilling effect on our discussions with students. I do not feel comfortable having an in-depth conversation on diversity, equity, and inclusion with respect to race, gender identity, and the things excluded in SB 17 with a student. I'm worried if I go too deep, it can be construed as a training, and I get fired for that, okay? I have a tenured position, and I still get fired for it, right? So that really needs to get cleaned up. That bill was just, went through a lot of edits and came out with a lot of ambiguity and contradictions within the bill. So it left open a lot of questions. It'd be nice to just, let us teach, let the students learn, let us do our research. Don't interfere with what the innovation that we're bringing. SB 37 would love to strip all the prohibitions on faculty senates. That has absolutely killed our ability to, in things in healthcare and in teaching and in research. Faculty senates advise on not just curriculum, on everything, research policy, scholarships, student, admission, student advancement. We do the whole gamut because of our expertise. We have expertise across the whole gamut of what a university or a community college can do. And to have all the faculty senates completely eliminated in the UT system, all 13 campuses, was horrible. They in the health institutions, they gave advice to the president or the CEO for healthcare, for what do you do, for patient care, for medical research, for clinical trials. Physician burnout came from the faculty senates at UTMD Anderson. Okay, so that's all gone. There are no more faculty senates in the UT system. So we'd like to be able to strip that part of SB 37 completely out of the bill. Bring back the faculty senates with freedom of speech and freedom of assembly.
I mean, I love all those ideas. I guess, and I'll talk to you more, Brian, later, but thank you for all you do. And Antonio, I know we had a conversation last week. I guess for what I think is really powerful for the panel and anybody watching is being a representative from El Paso, knowing that in my community, there are higher rates of diabetes or other diseases that impact Latino communities, knowing that now there is an inability to teach to our communities health disparities. What have you seen has been basically life-threatening research or data that we should know about?
Yes, so based on the creative memoranda, we've had AAP members who are clients in El Paso medical system who were told they cannot teach their students about health disparities. But that's super dangerous in a place like El Paso, a border community, because of higher rates of asthma for Latino children. There's a large Black community because of Fort Bliss, and so there's higher rates of Black women who have issues with pregnancies and potential life-threatening issues. And those discussions cannot happen. And in particular, the medical school in El Paso is the only medical school on the US border with Mexico. And so they have a unique mission. For example, everyone has to learn Spanish to graduate from that institution. And to have that type of cultural competency about healthcare disparities be erased, it's taking the culture war and leading to Black and brown casualties. And I think we have to call that out. This is not just about banning books and banning curriculum. It's about training physicians in a way that will lead to more people of color in our communities to have mortalities that do not have to happen. And I think Chancellor Creighton and the Board of Regents and all these institutions, they're not thinking about our communities when they're making these decisions. They're thinking about what they think is woke. They're thinking about what they think is going to get them political points. But we have to deal with the repercussions, and we have to make sure everyone knows that while they're hurting our communities, we call them out.
And speaking of physicians.
Well, I had similar question which he asked. I will not ask you that part of medical and research part. But sometimes, or actually most of the time, legislation filed and legislation passed is different. and it creates some confusion at times. So Professor Brian, you touched on SB 37. Isn't the SB 37, which was originally filed, banned the specific teachings of race, ethnicity, gender, social, political, and religious beliefs, background? But then what was passed, some of that ban was removed, or some is still there. Is the university still following the censorship language that ban was removed?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So the SB 37 had a version that passed the Senate and also passed the House. And both of those versions, there were bans against teaching about some of the following 6 topics: race, gender, gender identity, religious, political, and social beliefs and backgrounds. But in the final version that passed, all that got stripped out. SB 37 contains no bans on teaching any specific topics, period, full stop. But that language then suddenly started appearing in university system policies through their boards of regents, starting officially in writing in November, but there were some unofficial attempts back in September of 2025 to start banning these topics in classes. But the written policies came through in November and December through, again, in the end, now 5 of our 7 university systems have clear written censorship policies banning topics on race, gender, and gender identity in teaching.
Institutions are creating their own policy. There's not actually legislation.
That is correct. The university systems are creating their own policies. It's not part of any legislation. There's no legislative mandate to do what they're doing.
And that really is infuriating because as with House Bill 17 or with Senate Bill 17, whatever, the DEI bill as well, they went in with a broad brush. They overcompensated. They didn't do, because in the legislative process, as Dr. Lalani has noted and Dr. Gonzalez, is that you strip out a lot of that language and the give and take of a legislative process. And what ends up happening is though that the universities out of fear or the systems out of fear overreact and overdo. And that's what appears, what they're saying is appears that they are going beyond what the actual legislation actually ended at. And they're imposing their own, broad brushes to include things that were stripped out when we actually passed the bill. So thank you for that insight and that reminder for us to when we have our our session in January, that we really need to go back and really make a point. And as Mary said, elections matter, and I'll leave it at that. But I want to thank you all for your very insightful testimony. And we really appreciate, again, the efforts of you all coming here today. And we're going to dismiss this panel and proceed to the next one. So thank you. Oh, I would like to call up the next panel. Now it's Dr. Angela Valenzuela, Lisa Moore, and Desiree Walker. If you could please come up. Here, closer. Okay, thank you all. Again, I'm going to call on you individually and ask each of you to please state your name and affiliation for the record. Dr. Valenzuela?
Yes, good morning. Thank you. My name is Angela Valenzuela. I'm a professor at the University of Texas in the Department of Educational Leadership, and I'm speaking on my own behalf. And thank you so much for this opportunity. We're living through a coordinated backlash against DEI, ethics studies, women and gender studies, and public education itself. I say coordinated because it's a national agenda. It's not just happening here in Texas. It's happening in other states. And I'm here to bring some context of this battle that I think one can argue in some respects originates in Arizona. This was back in 2000, and there was a case that was brought by teachers and students at the in the Tucson Unified School District against the Superintendent of Instruction and the Arizona Department of Education. It was first called Arce v. Douglas, and now it's Gonzalez v. Douglas. And that case was won. In that case, the teachers and the students, they challenged the elimination of the district's very highly successful Mexican American Studies program. It was dismantled by Tom Horn and then Huppenthal. They went to federal court, and it's a long story, a winding story, but they failed in district court. Then it went to the Ninth Circuit, and the Ninth Circuit actually ruled that there were violations on 2 grounds. It was remanded back to the Arizona District Court, where it was a First Amendment case where officials acted with the purpose of restricting access, particular viewpoints. It was a First Amendment claim. Under the First Amendment, there's something called viewpoint discrimination. It is a part of the First Amendment law that protects specifically academic freedom and the right that we have to our curriculum, the right that we have to knowledge that reflects our experiences, our cultures, and our histories. The 14th Amendment was germane as well because the court found that elimination of the program was motivated by racial animus toward Mexican Americans. So Gonzalez gives us 2 questions that Texas should be asking right now. What ideas are being suppressed or disfavored? We have a sense today of what those ideas are. And secondly, who is being singled out and why? So Senate Bill 3 restricts the teaching of race and history in K-12 schools, and some of us have argued that that's where some of these logics began in Texas, and that then became Senate Bill 17 that prohibits DEI offices and identity-based programming in public universities. Then, of course, Senate Bill 18 weakened tenure protections, and Senate Bill 37 expands political control over faculty governance, as we heard earlier. Together, these laws create an interlocking architecture of control over knowledge. At UT Austin, Mexican American and Latino studies, African and African diaspora studies, women's gender and sexuality studies, and American studies are losing their independent departmental status and being consolidated into a new department of social and cultural analysis. I want to be precise. UT Austin is not Tucson, and consolidation by itself does not establish a constitutional violation, but Gonzalez teaches us not to stop our inquiry, our looking into things that are happening on the ground because they're justified with language that professes to be neutral. Like, this is about restructuring, right? This is about return on investment, and this is about efficiency, and thus and such. So this is what's very important. So history offers a warning. In 1933, the Institute for Social Research, the home of what became known as the Frankfurt School, was closed after the Nazis came to power and its scholars were driven into exile. Texas today is not Nazi Germany, and the comparison should not be overstated, but the lesson endures. Universities become vulnerable when political authorities begin deciding which forms of scholarship are acceptable and which intellectual traditions are suspect. Academic freedom is not merely a professional privilege, it is a democratic safeguard against political power over knowledge itself. And Gonzalez reminds us that laws restricting teaching and learning do not become constitutional simply because legislatures enact them. Their purposes and effects matter. So I leave you with 2 questions for Texas and for UT and other universities. What ideas are being suppressed, and who is being singled out? Thank you very much.
Uh, Thank you so much. We'll be back later for questions of all three of you, but I'd like to call Lisa Moore now. Would you please state your name and your affiliation for the record?
Hello, my name's Lisa Moore, and I'm speaking today as a private citizen. I've been a faculty member at UT Austin since 1991, and most recently served as chair of the Department of Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies. And like several colleagues, and as Dr. Valenzuela mentioned, I lost that position when the department was closed this summer, along with 6 other departments. Beginning August 16th, I will hold an appointment 50% in English and 50% in this new consolidated Department of Social and Cultural Analysis, which I just want to say we met yesterday. So it's 4 departments jammed into one. We have no major, we have no curriculum. And I also want you to be aware that the interim dean of the College of Liberal Arts, his term expires on August 15th, and he has not been reappointed. And we don't know who, that August 15th is Saturday. We don't know who the dean will be. So this is how you do it, right? It's by, firing and removing a whole layer of leaders that were really invested in higher education and in UT Austin. And then replacing them with people who are serving at your whim. I really want to thank Representative Lulu Flores, all the organizers, the whole panel. Every single one of you is someone whose work I'm of course very familiar with and really, really appreciate over decades in the case of many of you. Representative Flores, as she mentioned, has supported women's and gender studies at UT for many years and witnessed the long effort required to build a strong academic program in this area. I'm here to discuss the chilling effect on academic freedom and the growing climate of censorship on Texas public university campuses. These developments follow the passage of Senate Bill 17 in 2023 and Senate Bill 37 in 2025. As we heard, Senate Bill 17 eliminated diversity, equity, and inclusion offices across public universities and led to the loss of dozens of positions at UT Austin. And remember, that's taking people off the campuses that were helping students succeed. It decimated the student services side of the university staff. SB 37 imposed major changes to university governance, including the weakening of longstanding structures of faculty oversight, as Brian Evans mentioned. Together, these measures have altered the conditions under which universities teach, conduct research, and govern themselves. And the self-censorship and over-compliance that you were discussing a few minutes ago is because we look around the state and see people fired without cause, and we see people whose lectures are being recorded by students who've been recruited to put them on blast on the internet. So these are the things that people are, the very real threats that people are considering. One lesson from the closure of the Department of Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies and the related departments is that academic programs may be most vulnerable when they appear most secure. Over several decades, we built a major in gender studies, a graduate program, and eventually a department. We trained students, produced internationally recognized research, and contributed to the intellectual life of the university. This is a program that was established in 1982, and I was hired to be a faculty member in that program in 1991. So these are not ideas of yesterday. Yet that success did not protect us. In fact, our visibility and influence may have made us a target. And Brian Evans referred to how including a broader sense of the human has transformed every field in the humanities, social sciences, engineering, and medicine. And that's the threat. It really did make change. Fields such as gender and ethnic studies are often relatively small, but they've had a profound impact on universities and on public life. Many practices that now seem routine emerge from decades of work by scholars in these fields, and I appreciated Representative Morales mentioning disabled students, and it's scholars and activists from disability studies that led to the ADA. But also more inclusive teaching methods, accessibility initiatives, family and health accommodations, broader efforts to make higher education available to people who were once excluded from it. And of course, that's to the benefit of the whole society, not just people who were once excluded who are now included, but everyone when you're drawing from really who's going to be the, make the greatest contribution to this path-breaking medical research. You're not choosing just from 1/3 of the population that you deem worthy to be on this campus. You're actually choosing the best from the whole population. These changes have benefited students, faculty, and staff across the university. And as Dr. Valenzuela mentioned, the attacks on these fields are often justified in different ways. Budget concerns, viewpoint diversity, enrollment efficiency, workforce preparation, yet the targets remain remarkably consistent. Many small departments, many small majors were like philosophy, religious studies, classics were left alone, while Mexican American Latino studies, African diaspora studies were targeted. I just will close with a story from a friend of mine who is a department chair in the engineering school. He was telling me that one of his most accomplished faculty members, who he recruited and who was very, sought after and well paid, studies technology and healthcare outcomes. She felt she could not teach her subject responsibly without addressing how race and gender shape access to healthcare and patterns of illness, yet she was afraid to do so. She worried about public attacks, online harassment, and professional retaliation. My colleague told me with real frustration, I can't protect her. So please oppose further legislation that restricts academic freedom, weakens faculty governance, or narrows what can be taught at public universities. The future of higher education and democracy in Texas depend on it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Walker, could you please state your name and affiliation for the record?
Before I begin, may I change my seat so that I can talk to both groups? Sorry, I didn't want my back to y'all. Good morning, I'm Desiree Walker. I come as a private citizen. I am African and indigenous. I was born on Turtle Island, what my ancestors would call the mature land. I graduated in 2025 from the African Diaspora Studies Department with a minor in Mexican American Latino Studies. I am now a middle school science teacher, which is why I'm dressed like this. I left work. I was gonna write everything down, and then I realized it'd probably be better for me to engage in my ancestral practice and do oral tradition, because you could write the recipe down, but it changes every time, right? This started with SB 17 for me. They got rid of DEI. We lost staff that were supportive to our issues. I am a first generation scholar. And so coming to UT was difficult for me. We lost staff, we lost DEI programs that were there to support us. And it caused a lot of pain for the students. But for me, it was insight to what was coming in the future. So that was their first step to getting rid of ethnic studies. Ethnic studies, once that's erased, they want to get rid of our universities. So I have a lot of brothers and sisters who attend Houston-Tillotson University. I love them, I do work with them. I see them daily. And I want to acknowledge that this is not about, yeah, we're here for higher education, but it's not about education. It's about access and accessibility in our lives. This is a life or death matter. My senior year, I created an organization called Los Muertos Vivientes, meaning the living dead. These people want to enslave us, right? So whenever they proposed SB 37, there was emphasis on workforce readiness, right? Meeting workforce requirements. In fact, I believe the Progressive Caucus didn't attend because this didn't address workforce needs. In fact, I don't have what society would consider a technical degree, something that is transferable to the workforce, but I'm probably one of the most valued and youngest employees at the school that I work at. That is because ethnic studies, African and African diaspora studies, Mexican American Latino studies gave me a foundation to support my community. The reason I turned my chair is because I feel it is vital for not just you to hear this, but for my community to also hear from me. I have no resources from any institutions, any small businesses. Everything that I scrape up and I present to my students, I've gone and I retrieved from community members. I do work in Houston. I was in Houston all summer actually helping organize Pan-African Summer School at the Shape Center, which I'm sure you're familiar with. All of these things were put together by folks who are in their early 20s, who are struggling, who live paycheck to paycheck. In fact, I made $1,500 stretch from May until this week. I got my first paycheck last Monday. And so I say all of this because we're having an issue with solidarity and sustainability of our communities. I mean, for instance, I was in the African and African Diaspora Studies department. I see no faculty, so I wonder if they were invited. I see no students or peers. I also wonder if they were invited. I see no members from Houston-Tillotson who also were fighting and participants of the For the Love of Texas summit that we had during the 89th Ledge Sesh. And so I ask all of us, what are we doing outside of these elitist spaces, right? Because higher education is open to affluent people of color, right? And I serve my community as an African indigenous woman, as somebody who, and by the way, I was originally admitted into the College of Natural Science to become a biomedical engineer. And then I switched my major. So I have the brain of a scientist. I did not come here to be a variable in somebody else's experiment, right? I came to engage in the scientific work. I'm what they call a scientific socialist, and we've seen that bureaucracy has been put in place for 250 years. And the moment money comes in, bureaucracy is thrown out the window. We've seen what bureaucracy does for Black and brown people, right? We have the 13th Amendment, which legally allows American citizens to be enslaved. We have all of these issues, and we're out here begging and begging and begging for somebody to just give us a space. And I'm saying ethnic studies is a necessity because there are gaps in our education amongst the scholars, the faculties, the participants, the leaders, the representatives. We still need this so that we can reach another level of consciousness. But if we were rooted in our community like ethnic studies was intended to be, they might not have been able to take it out of our hands like that. The people who deserve access to this information are the parents who live paycheck to paycheck, the students who work, the students who are being taken from their families or haven't seen their families in a long time, the students who are presented information in languages that they don't even know. We are a colonized people who are begging and begging and begging for a bureaucracy to work when we know that it's about power. They said the workforce. I've been working since I was 14 years old, legally since I was 15. I've been in the workforce. They told me get a degree, I got a degree. Then they told me, oh, you can't, it's not transferable. But it's crazy because I have learned and sharpened more skills to support my students and their parents at the ripe age of 23 than some educators who have been in here for 15 years. So I don't have much else to say, but
We appreciate what you have to say. Thank you for being here, and thank you for that. I'd like to just say a few things. You know, things have changed since I went to the University of Texas. I went to a junior college in Laredo. Didn't have the money, had to work to pay for my tuition. But tuition was $4 a semester hour. So I could afford to attend University of Texas at Austin by paying $60 for 15-hour a semester. So, and even that was a challenge because I had to work summers to save my money because then you have to buy your books and you have to have housing. But it's a very different world. So once they started deregulating the tuition issue, that's a big no-no for me. And I'm sitting here reminded of the late great Irma Rangel, who was my mentor. And some of you came from Kingsville, Texas, and beat the King Ranch and became a state representative, the first Mexican-American woman to ever get elected to the House of to the Texas legislature by becoming a House member in 1976. It sounds like a long time ago, but it was very recent for me. I started working for her in 1979 when I was at the law school, and that was also $4 a semester hour. So I was able to go to law school because I turned it down, but they called me and said, if we give you a scholarship, will you come? So they were trying to diversify the campus back then. So and Gonzalo Barrientos, and along with Irma Rangel with a 10% plan, because when they, tore down, affirmative action and admissions, they came up with a plan, a solution that was non-race specific, but making sure that it reached out to even small rural communities to make sure that people that graduated the top 10% of any class, any public school could attend the University of Texas or any of our flagship universities. So thank you, Gonzalo, and thank you, Irma, who would be rolling in her grave because she became the chair of the Higher Education Committee at the Texas legislature. She served 26 years, and she worked so hard for DACA students, for any people trying to have access, and it's all about access, opening those doors, providing scholarships, providing grants, making sure that those doors of opportunity were available to everybody. And she's rolling in her grave, but she's also, up there looking at us and saying, thank you for standing up for what we're doing. And thank you for making it real on, what we're supposed to be doing and working with our communities. So with that, I'm going to ask and thank you all for your very, very great testimony. I'm going to ask the members of the panel if they have any questions for you all.
Thank you. I have a comment and a question, and please bear with me. So inspired by you, Desiree. I did a blasphemous thing amongst my colleagues when we defunded DEI, and I voted against our state budget. And, I feel like I was reprimanded for that. But you today made me so proud of my vote because it is impacting our young students and the young people of Texas. And with that, my question and kind of another comment is that my daughter graduated from UT in 2016. Her name's Angela. And I was so proud of her. And with that degree, she followed her dreams. She graduated with a marketing degree and was the director of social media platforms for President Biden. That UT degree took her very far, and she's living her dream right now. So my question is, as we see these attacks on higher education and the consolidation of these programs, what will UT Austin look like in 5 years if we continue on this trajectory? And will the degrees carry the same weight that they carried when my daughter graduated and when you graduated?
I'll start. I think that the people that are breaking things in higher education in Texas are actually not concerned with the value of the degree. They're concerned with displays of dominance and with demonstrating that they can bring the universities into ideological alignment with whoever happens to be in power in the Capitol. It's already happened that the reputation of UT Austin has been damaged by the people leaving, by the people who interview here and don't come. Over the past year, it takes about a year to do a faculty hire. Over the past year, I have talked to multiple colleagues who are also department chairs who had candidates, top candidates who considered UT Austin to be, a fantastic job opportunity that they were lucky to be considered for. And then by the time the offer came with these changes that happened just in the last year, they were turning them down and saying, we can't function on a campus where there's censorship, and we can't function on a campus where there's no meaningful faculty governance. We're still here. The people who, I want to also point out that the real meteoric rise of national and international reputation with UT Austin started around the same time as the departmentalization of African American studies, Mexican American Latino studies. So, and women's and gender studies as well. And we were recruited, we were brought into recruitments for, departments in engineering and natural sciences, you know, they wanted to meet with the Black Studies faculty if they had candidates who were concerned about whether they'd feel comfortable or find community in Austin. And so we were sort of cynically used to say, yeah, you know, MacArthur Genius Award winner, come to UT Austin and Black Studies will make sure that, you know, you and your family are okay. So that actually had a really distinctive impact. UT was always a good school, but we became a stellar school. I've been here since 1991. And I often think when I serve on the promotion and tenure committee and I look at the files of the young people coming up now, I could never get a job at UT Austin now with who I was in the 80s, you know? It's just gone through it's stratospheric, you know, the quality of people that we attract. Now, again, we're still here. We're still trying to do something. We care about our students. The students are still here. You know, someone like Desiree is an example of the brilliance that we have to work with. So we'll do something, but I don't know how long it will take or what it will look like.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot more to add except to say that we are in a war, right? We're in the middle of the war, and I don't know that the public really understands that. And so we need to understand how profound this is. This is a national level agenda that's decades old, that's connected to Project 2025, that's projected to the Heritage Foundation and the Scaife Foundation, to many foundations that they have their own donor networks and they have all this messaging that is very anti-higher education. The wall now, the Seven Mountains Mandate, they want to take down this is a literal dismantling, a literal decision by white nationalists, sometimes called Christian nationalists, religious nationalists, to take down you know, these mountains: education, government, entertainment, culture. I mean, just it's profound what's happening. And the mistake that we make on the left as liberals is that we don't recognize just how serious this agenda is, but we see it with the dismantling of a government in DC. I mean, we're experiencing it firsthand. So so it's not just Texas. And I want to tell our fellow faculty to, you know, consider sticking around and let's duke it out, because you're going to probably go to another state where you're going to encounter the same crap. Thanks.
Where will the university be in 5 years? UT has that famous saying, "What starts here changes the world," right? But they fail to mention whether or not that's for the better or for worse. And so some of the changes that have been made don't allow us to ethically, I don't believe in ethics, but allow us to actually pursue studies in education and research, right? UT has goals of being a research one institution, R1 institution, and we're struggling to compete. I graduated with a degree that was already illegitimized, right? However, the Department of African Diaspora Studies was one of the very few programs that had a faculty-led study abroad course at Oxford University, right? And I was a participant summer 2024. And what you're seeing is students aren't wanting to attend the school anymore. International students aren't going to spend the money to come to a school that can't compete globally. We're talking about Texas and we're talking about the United States, whatever. We need to be talking about what's happening around the globe, because ultimately we are all an indigenous peoples that come from somewhere. And we're talking about the sustainability of life. We're watching environmental scientists go to jail, be in prison, go missing. Activists go missing. Students, kids go missing. No one can talk about the issues that we're suffering. What you're talking about is like, it's going to be a grave mistake to continue going down this path, not just for the sake of studies, for education, for rapport, prestige, lives. This is impacting real lives, y'all. And we could talk about 5 years. I can't get a job now because in 2024, I was arrested at a campus art workshop. It was an art workshop to support the ending of a genocide. And we were arrested, and now I have to go pay hundreds of dollars and find somebody that's willing to expunge my record. And Judge Hernandez dropped the charges that night. We were convicted of nothing. They're saying there are these goals to support society, to sustain our communities, to help the lives. That's not the goal, y'all. So in 5 years, I see UT losing students, losing faculty, and no longer being able to compete on a prestigious level, but also putting children and young adults in situations that are just gonna kill them. There's suicide missions. For instance, we're building data centers, the AI centers, and at every single one of the graduations this past year, because I went to go support my friends, the speeches were, we need to embrace AI. We need to do all these things, which is fantastic. Yeah, sure, there are benefits. I'm an educator, so I'm around a whole bunch of people who abuse it and use it or whatever. But it's a suicide mission because you got all of your work done, but you're gonna have no water to drink and no land to feed off of and to care for. That's where we're gonna be.
Thank you so much. And just for the record, I do want to say that the Texas Legislative Progressive Caucus is supporting this event, and most of our panelists are part of the caucus.
And I also want to say for the record that we did reach out to the other institutions, and, you know, some either could make it, could not. There were outreach efforts, and like they say, you can take, bring a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So that, you know, and, you know, time constraints, it's a work day, you know, it's reality. It's also summer. So, but we appreciate everybody, even the ones that are in the far corner over there. This room is a very weird shape, and we have a segregated room here, and we don't, it's not unintentional, just for the record. Okay. It's just the way the facility is, but I appreciate every single one of y'all that made the time to come to this. And are there any other questions for the panel? So if they're not being, we really thank you all for your very insightful and scary comments because there's a lot of work we all have to do. And I do want to say also for the record that the Progressive Caucus is, I spoke to the chair, there was a little bit of a misunderstanding, but we realize education is a key to an educated workforce. And that's what, you know, they are the engine of our society because they create the students and the workforce of tomorrow. So this is all very related to working issues. And it was just a technical misunderstanding, but we are all very much behind this project. So again, thank you. I would like to say that we have reached the part of the program where we will begin the public testimony. I think we have time for, if people, do we have a 5-minute break or no? We're fine. We have three panels of, no, we have 20 people signed up, which is great. We will accommodate everybody. So we'll just go right ahead, and I'm going to call the first group to come up. I'm going to call them in order of 3, and I guess I should refer to my notes so I make sure I don't miss something. Again, if you wish to testify and you haven't signed up, go ahead and speak with Fatima wherever she's sitting to do so. And you're going to be given 3 minutes to speak at this point, so it's a little bit shorter. And before each of you come up, I will ask you to state your name and affiliation for the record. So I'm going to call up Dr. Emilia Zamora, Jim Estrada, and Noah, okay, I'm going to say this wrong, Devesavoy? Oh, is it an L or a V? Devesavoy. Okay, I tried 3 times and I failed. I apologize. Somebody left their phone? Oh, it's a microphone. Okay. All right. So, Dr. Zamora, would you please state your name and affiliation, if any, for the record?
Emilio Zamora, Professor Emeritus, History Department, UT Austin. And I'm sorry to be giving my back to y'all. One other thing I wanted to say, there's a lot more people involved in the Latino Coalition. There's a lot of work that was done by them, and I want to congratulate that group. Thank you so much for all the work that you've done. I'm going to focus on UT Austin. Consolidation is misleading and dishonest because it does not merely restructure, it dismantles the departments as we have long known them, erasing their identities under the convenient guise of administrative efficiency. It forces them into a single unit so large and so varied that no institution committed to excellence could hope to manage it well, unless university administrators are creating the conditions to streamline and weaken the new department later. Restructuring restricts the participation of each of the ethnic, women's, gender, and sexuality studies programs in the intellectual life of the university, placing them at the margins of scholarly engagement, where their voices can be readily dismissed, their contributions overshadowed, and their expertise devalued. Restructuring discredits the long-standing, rigorous, and nationally recognized work these fields have produced, work that has shaped essential knowledge, transformed teaching, strengthened community and professional service, and built institutions that reinforce the university's standing. Their contributions have been repeatedly affirmed through formal multi-level reviews at universities across the country, including the University of Texas. Restructuring is wrong. It collapses distinct academic fields, each with its own methodologies, histories, and intellectual traditions, into an oversized structure that diminishes their autonomy and undermines their ability to serve undergraduate and graduate students well. At a time when statewide political pressure seeks to restrict teaching on race, gender, and sexuality, this appears less like an academic reorganization and more like an ideologically motivated initiative. Restructuring disproportionately targets the departments, all the while knowing that the discriminatory act infringes upon the academic freedom of racially and culturally distinct groups that are explicitly protected by university policy and national standards. Faculty and students in these disciplines have already warned that the new structure could limit their ability to teach and learn the material essential to the fields. Such violations could well trigger internal investigations, external investigations by the Texas legislature, and civil rights organizations concerned with discriminatory governance practices. Restructuring appears politically motivated and actionable because the review process appears, I didn't see that, appears to be incomplete in that it disregards established vetting policies and procedures noted in the Handbook of Operations in the university. These are the very safeguards meant to ensure fairness, transparency, and academic integrity. They're violating their own rules of their own procedures. It diminishes protected class scholarship, undermining fields whose contributions have long expanded the university's intellectual horizons. Restructuring signals that specific bodies of knowledge that are being targeted, particularly those rooted in race, ethnicity, gender, and sexuality, are expendable. It undermines the principle that universities must cultivate a broad and inclusive intellectual community, not narrow it. And it sets a dangerous precedent. The politically convenient restructuring can override rigorous evaluation, shared governance, and the rights of scholars whose work challenges, enriches, and advances the public mission of higher education. The university has two options. They can continue down this path that creates deeper divisions. There's another path that leads to honest dialogue, principled governance, and a recommitment to sound intellectual leadership. This moment demands courage and the willingness to act before the opportunity for repair slips away. And by the way, much of what I've said applies to other places around the state, other campuses. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Jim Estrada. Could you please state your name and affiliation, if any, for the record?
My name is Jim Estrada. I'm here today as the author of the ABCs and Enye of America's Cultural Evolution. I'm amazed by how much the discussion today so far has been about gerrymandering. Okay? The same effects that we use in politics are being used in so many other areas of our society and using the same techniques. We have to get money out of politics. I know we all need to raise it in order to get elected, right? I've become an expert in what is cultural social responsibility. Okay, I've worked for some of the top Fortune 50 companies in America. Anheuser-Busch, Walmart, Wells Fargo, McDonald's, among them. What we've learned is that power is in the capitalism that we promote so freely in this country. And the fact that is, if you don't have capital, you don't have any power. And if you don't have any power, we're going to be enslaved again. I was impressed by the comments of Desiree. I'm one of the founders of MECHA in California, the Mexican American Chicano Association of young kids. I was an oldster, having come out of the military. But the fact is, the things that we were advocating for then are even more underscored today than when we started back in 1964, okay? One of the things that, and I'm going to deviate so I can get down to this 3-minute discussion. Today, 1 minute, okay? We have to look at what's going on with how we're spending the resources of this country, okay? We as Latinos now, if we were a group, a nation, we would be the 4th GDP producer in the world, okay? Corporate social responsibility on the part of corporate America was to how to increase profits, okay? And I helped my clients increase profits. But with that came some issues that we have to come back and revisit. You know, what are the principles of corporate social responsibility? Fairness, justice, and equal access to government. And I think that God bless all of you that are making changes, but I think we have to get back to the basics of corporate social responsibility. What is the function? It's not to control, it's not to mandate, it's not to take charge of everything in our lives. We can do that on our own. And I think that I had a lot to say, but economics is education. Education is economics. And until we start leveling the playing field on how to make sure that the lowest of all income earners have the same amount of vote and influence as the top CEOs, money in politics has become rampant. And I think that one of the things that we need to do is we need to stand up. If we're consumers, and Latinos, 4th largest GDP in the nation, we as Latinos have to start getting involved in our money being spent or not spent on those corporations that are not appealing to our needs. And until we start to leverage our power, and believe it, we have power with being the 4th largest GDP in the nation, if we were a nation, 70 million of us. And we're the fastest growing. And I think we have to reiterate the fact that one person, one vote is what this country was based on. And we have to get back to basics.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm gonna butcher your name again. Would you please state your name for the record and your affiliation, if any?
My name is Noah Delisavoy, and I'm speaking for myself as a private person and not for any institution. I am a tenured faculty member in the College of Education at UT Austin, where I have taught since 2008. I want to thank you, representatives and the coalition, for holding this hearing. I want to make a few comments related to my area of expertise. The consolidation of UT's Department of African and African Diaspora Studies, Mexican American and Latino Studies, Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies, and American Studies, restrictions on curriculum as specified in the recent Board of Regents policy, and the broader sidelining of inquiry into issues of inequity and injustice all constitute political attacks on marginalized communities and academic freedom. At the same time, it is important to see that these measures are also attacks on the process of teaching itself. True teaching is based on respect, caring, and love for all students. Caring for students means caring for who they are as people, which includes their backgrounds, experiences, identities, and communities. There is no abstract or detached caring. Eliminating the departments that are invested in and dedicated to communities of color and devaluing difference and diversity is not only morally wrong, it also violates essential principles of sound teaching. In addition, good teaching starts from curiosity, creativity, and even daring, since only in this spirit is curriculum engaging. But when we are discouraged from discussing certain so-called controversial topics, which is usually code for issues of power and identity, this short circuits the spirit of inquiry in the classroom and instruction falls flat. In fact, difficult topics are those that most need our attention as teachers and learners, since they require rigorous reflection and investigation that good teaching can support. Teaching is also based on relationships between teachers and students and among students themselves. It is in dialogue and in the community that we create with each other that the deepest learning is possible. But when teachers are worried that students may report them for providing challenging curricula, and when students are afraid to express their perspectives in class or in protests on campus, then relationships and community are not possible. In the current attacks on disciplines and curriculum that look beyond whiteness, as well as on instruction that invites students to explore relations of power and inequity, the university is turning against itself and its core pedagogical commitments. In this context, as we rise to defend these disciplines, to defend communities under attack, and to defend academic freedom, we at the same time also rise to defend teaching itself and the possibilities that it can create for all students. As committed and caring faculty and educators, we can do no less.
Thank you so much. Any questions for anybody? Okay, thank you all very much for your testimony. I'm going to go ahead and, if there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and call up the next three witnesses that have signed up.
Put this one back on the other one.
Oh, okay, I'm going to call four people. We have Montserrat Garibay, Daniel Ramirez, Marta Cotera, and Leonard Bright. Could you all please proceed to the front, and we're going to grab an extra chair. Well, you found one? Okay. We got one. Okay, you got Daniel and Marta, Montserrat, and Leonard. Is Leonard Bright still with us? Okay, maybe he stepped away or had to leave. Okay, well then we still have three. He's coming? No, that's okay. So Montserrat, would you please state your name and affiliation for the record, please?
Thank you. Montserrat Garibay. I am a former bilingual pre-K teacher and graduated from UT Austin. And I'm here to stand in solidarity with professors and students. I have been speaking a lot with them, listening to their concerns, what is happening at the University of Texas. It's detrimental, the fact that we don't have programs who truly align with who we are, and education, of course, it's pivotal for our communities, and we need to have these programs. These programs are important not only for our community, but for our future of our state of Texas. And so I I appreciate all the different testimonies that we have heard. Professors who I truly admire and respect are feeling a lot of pressure. And unfortunately, we are losing a lot of amazing educators and professors in our communities, especially here in Austin, and to hear the testimonies from students not being able to keep studying the programs that they sign up for is it's not something that should be happening in the university that claims to change the world. And with that, I pass my time for the one and only Marta Cotera. Thank you.
And thank you so much. Ms. Cotera, would you state your name and affiliation for the record, please?
Good morning. My name is Marta Cotera, and I'm a member of the Coalition for Excellence in Higher Education. We're just so grateful to all of you, our representatives, joining us today. Your time is valuable, and we really, really appreciate your response to us. And like Lulu, I was channeling Irma, and you will see it in my written statement that I will turn in. Irma, the champion of everything that we treasure, intelligence, energy, and morality. And so I was thinking of her as we ask and demand, in fact, the restoration of academic freedom and excellence in higher education in Texas. And by the way, it's not just what they're doing in academic freedom. It's reproductive health for women that is keeping a lot of professionals from moving into this state. And so we just like, there goes another nail. Pues qué pendejos. I'm sorry. Mother will never forgive me. We dream and we work at the same time. I was just a little older than Desiree, believe it or not. In 1968, when we started working on establishing a Center for Mexican American Studies. And here we are almost 60 years later, we finally got our departments. And at the same time, as you know, in the 70s, we also worked on African American studies and women and gender studies. And I was a member of both committees that set up the Mexican American Studies program and the Women and Gender Studies program. And Lulu, you served on that committee later, on the department later. But I'm very proud to have been working on this for so many decades. And then to have it in an instant, snatched away the people that had nothing to do with the hard work of over almost 6 decades as we speak. And so this is very, very annoying, to say the least. And also the fact that thankfully it was not snatched away by meritorious academic leaders, but by politicians. Never mind. Ethnic and gender studies involved. The reason we established these departments is because they involve rigorous and critical analysis of race, ethnicity, class, and gender. And they provide the kind of insight we need to appreciate the development of our state and nation. They engage in rigorous scholarship based on facts, not ideology. It's a superb process for preparing culturally competent professionals, physicians, lawyers, educators, scientists, entrepreneurs, researchers, architects. My husband definitely has benefited from learning about his culture and becoming an excellent architect that can represent any culture, especially, Southwestern culture in Texas. Engineers, mathematicians, artists, and policymakers. I challenge anyone who thinks that cultural competence is irrelevant to their success. Even fraudsters must be competent in fraudulent behavior and politics in order to be successful con artists, and break the law successfully and mostly get away with it if you're in the right class and race. Major and minor degrees in ethnic studies benefit 47% of Texas Latino workforce, and in general, 60% of Texas population. educating us for success in today's diverse workplace. I mean, it's just plain stupid to allow, policymakers and politicians to determine what our future is going to be. We cannot allow that. On February 20th, 2026, UT's Civitas Institute, now they're supposed to be our new leaders, hosted a conference on America's Latino futures, which we attended. And by the way, we took their lunch afterwards. And every single panelist of the Civitas Institute supported more research, analysis, and curriculum on Latinos in Texas and in the United States. Their own panelists said it. And we were there and we witnessed it. We agreed, of course, there, and we praised the Mexican American and Latino Studies Department. We praised the Latino Research Institute and the Center for Mexican American Studies for doing this so well. Together, they have made, and we made sure that they knew that together, they have made the University of Texas one of the leading institutes in the country for the study of the histories, cultures, and contemporary issues of Latinos in the U.S. In a very short time, we have become as good as UCLA's, or better sometimes, Latino Studies program that has been in business for about 40 years. That is why we're asking state legislators, thank you so much, to work with our coalition to restore the departments along with other ethnic and gender studies departments that have been eliminated at UT and at other state universities where they have been dismantled. And in fact, even in private universities, because they were very fast to follow suit. Oh, good. We don't have to spend money on Blacks and Mexicans no more. As taxpayers and voters, we will partner with you to repeal all legislation that has destroyed academic freedom in Texas and our academic departments, potentially serving 60% of Texas population. We do not submit.
Thank you. Mr. Ramirez, will you state your name and affiliation, if any, for the record, please?
Sure. Hi, I'm Daniel Ramirez. I'm an undergraduate at the University of Texas studying computer science. I also am with Austin Students for a Democratic Society, a student organization on campus. So I want to speak here today to the leadership of the university, specifically President Jim Davis and Provost William Inboden, and I'll speak from personal experience on this. I come from the RGV, a Chicano, born and raised. So when there were rumors that the Mexican American Latino Studies Department was going to be shut down, I involved myself in efforts to see how we could prevent this decision. And around this time, Trump also sent UT his federal compact on excellence in higher education. Similarly, I felt the agreement sold our university to the federal government in a way that is completely antithetical to academic freedom. Still, the president of the Board of Regents responded positively to the compact, Kevin Eltife. All told, I was perplexed by the decisions of our university and system leadership, but I wasn't so confused when I actually researched these people. President Jim Davis comes from the Attorney General's office, Ken Paxton. He has no teaching experience, and so of all the people to choose for our next president, we chose Jim Davis. Or how about Provost William Inboden? He used to be on Bush Jr.'s National Security Council in the midst of Iraq and Afghanistan. He founded and ran a national security think tank at the university. You don't become a big name in the Attorney General's office, get on the National Security Council, or run a massive national security think tank by being a nonpartisan saint. You get there by being an intense partisan, by being a tool, no pun intended, of right-wing political institutions. These positions are as politically charged as you can get without being an actual politician. Most telling is Inboden's former job at the University of Florida. He was hired there in 2023 to lead UF's Hamilton School. This institution sings a familiar tune, one where they endlessly sing the praises of Western intellectual tradition, and in the words of Governor Ron DeSantis, who heavily supported the Hamilton School, fight against the tactics of liberal elites who suppress free thought in the name of identity politics and indoctrination. Strange. Everyone in this room knows what the Florida state government's role has been in higher education. All that needs to be mentioned is the new school. They are not reforming our institutions of higher education. They are destroying them with the bludgeon of state governance. Inboden's position was clear. From his interviews on the subject and the history of the institution he was leading, he was a political pawn through and through. Things became crystal clear when looking at the work put out by think tanks like the Manhattan Institute, housing the likes of Chris Rufo, a leading figure in the new school dismantling. The Trumpian rights plan for higher ed has been building for at least a decade longer, and we are seeing it take shape in the state governments that they have control over. I want to speak about my personal experience on this issue. I found all of this out in the fall of 2025 as the compact came to campus. And in October of 2025, the campus was really confused with the compact. They were confused that our university board would even consider selling ourselves to the federal government. Student leaders, faculty, staff all reached out to higher administration repeatedly, incessantly, to just learn what they were thinking. All we wanted was transparency, and we got nothing, absolutely nothing. I became actually aware of one instance of the provost agreeing to meet with the student. And the student had the meeting, and they told me after the fact that the provost spent half an hour introducing himself, kind of talking about his career, and then proceeded to dodge every single question that she had about the compact and the rumor of consolidation.
We're going to have to ask you to hurry up and wrap up because we have 3 minutes per person and we still have 15 more people to go and we were trying to keep on time. So
Sure,
please.
I'll end very soon. All told, a group of activists and I went to the provost office to demand a meeting, and he refused, and what we were left with is me being suspended for a semester from the university. And so all this said, you know, they think that we will stand by and be subjects of their history, of their agenda, and we won't be. We'll fight for our place at the table. So thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. I think we said Leonard Bright was not in the room. Okay, well, so does anybody have any questions at this point? All right, we're going to have to excuse Representative Morales. She has to get back to Houston. And I know that we're also, Representative Gonzalez has a strict noon, so we're going to hurry up. Calling up J.R. Gonzalez, Maria Unda, and Ricardo Peña. What's the next one after that? Is that the last panel? Okay. Okay, well. Back. Okay. JR? I saw JR earlier. Did he give up on us? Okay. JR Gonzalez? Okay. I'm going to get started with Ricardo Peña.
Oh, okay.
And will you state your name and affiliation, if any, for the record?
Actually, I'm Ricardo Peña. I'm coming from the Rio Grande Valley, and I basically representing myself. I am a graduate from UTRGV, currently a doctoral track with the Texas Women's University. I want to reiterate what Dr. Valenzuela said about being in a war. But wars are not fought in a conference room. They're fought out there. And what I want to let you guys know that the trajectory that this is going, the way the community is responding to this, because Latino Coalition for Higher Education, you're not going to have that if we don't protect what's going on at the ground level. Now, I come from the borderlands, and right now down there we have established several grassroots museums where some of these professors, colleagues, and students are holding escuelitas, schools, because K through 12 fails to teach us about our culture. So these professors are donating their time. They're not charging to holding these schools so they can teach gender studies, cultural studies, Latino studies, African American studies. And this is where, how did Dr. Rodriguez put it? The gut punch is the one that gets you. Because right now through social media, you're hearing a lot of rhetoric where education is not important.
that we should be focusing on the trades. Well, I was focused on the trades when I was young. I was tracked that way. They told me I couldn't not go to college, so I had to get my GED and join the military. How weird that I couldn't take the entrance exam to college, but the military took me right off the bat. But I ended up proving them wrong because I am a doctoral candidate today. Later in life, of course. But I just want to focus and let you guys know that the community out there is doing their part, and we hope that you do yours, because we're out there fighting. We're out there. There was this new thing for an older man like me to learn how to do social media was almost impossible. But they are now promoting for us to hit social media and start lecturing. And this is my contribution. I go out there, I do panels on social media, and I talk about our culture. I talk about CRT, about racism and how to break it. But the most impressive thing is how Dr. Alvarez with Museo 956 in the borderland is how she is restructuring. The last class she had, there was over 60 people that showed up wanting knowledge, wanting to know about who we are, where we came from, but mostly where we are going. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Unda, would you please state your name?
Yes.
For the
Hi,
record.
everyone. My name's Dr. Maria del Carmen Unda. I'm with the Latino Coalition for Higher Education. And yes, good morning. I'm speaking today in my capacity as a private individual. I'm a first-generation Mexican-American proud Chicana scholar and a recent graduate of the University of Texas at Austin, where I earned my PhD. So for about a decade, I have worked alongside Black, Brown, Indigenous, immigrant, working class communities across the state of Texas. My research and my life's work has centered around education equity, public policy, the power of communities, and how we create opportunities for future generations. But today, I want to speak as simply as someone who is a product of ethnic studies. I am ethnic studies. Ethnic studies has taught me that my history and my family mattered, that knowledge is carried through our communities, that Mexican American, Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color are not at the margins of Texas history, but we help build Texas. We are at the center. Education has transformed my life. It helped me go from a first-generation farm worker in California, raised by a single immigrant mother, to a college student earning my PhD. And so that's why what's happening at UT Austin is so deeply personal. The dismantling of Mexican American Latino studies, the dismantling of Africa and Africa diaspora studies is not simply an administrative restructuring. These departments are intellectual homes that were built through generations of struggle, scholarship, student activism, community advocacy. People have died for these studies. And so when you erase these departments, you are not simply moving faculty around on a organizational chart. You are erasing us. You are telling us that we don't matter, and we have to name that. So when institutions systematically diminish our histories, our intellectual traditions, our communities, and they're concentrating power over there on what's being taught, studied, and preserved, we must confront the structures. This is white supremacy. This is the erasure. And so the lack of transparency, we have, personally asked President Jim Davis, and the UT Board of Regents, we are asking for transparency, for accountability. Like, why are these decisions being made? They keep saying it's a business decision, but they're not giving us numbers. We have done multiple Freedom of Information Request acts, and has resulted in absolutely nothing. They're not giving us any information. And so, we demand transparency and accountability, and these decisions should be made with communities and not behind closed doors. I want to end with un dicho, a little saying in my community. It's a poem. So they try to bury us, but they didn't know we were seeds. Thank you.
Thank you. JR, state your name and affiliation for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is J.R. Gonzalez. I am a part of the Latino Coalition, and today I'm representing TAMAC, the Texas Association of Mexican American Chambers of Commerce. I know time is limited, so I'll keep it brief. One of the things that I agree with that was said earlier is we are under attack. And when I say under attack, we are under attack. A lot of people just haven't put the pieces together. Now, by no means am I a conspiratist type person, but I do watch Ancient Aliens on History Channel. I believe that. But along with higher education is what we're talking about today. Along with higher education, we look at what's also been attacked recently is our HUB program, historically underutilized businesses. They've attacked that. The opportunity for people to work and own businesses using their I-10 number has been taken away. So that's no longer available to them. Our AC people, our cosmetologists, our barbers, and all stuff. The entire community is being erased because now we're saying the rules have changed for all these years. You could no longer legally own a business. And my argument is these folks have skill sets. All they're going to do is continue doing it. It's going to be an underground economy without regulation. So, I mean, that's another huge thing. And of course, the worst problem is this immigration roundup or whatever you call it. I mean, it was given the proper name, I think, not long ago when they called it Operation Wetback. Now it's Operation, if you look anything other than white, let's round you up and deport you, whether you belong here or not. You could be even a U.S. citizen. So along with that, this is one of the things. So when people say, Jared, why are you speaking up for education? You're a business person. It is one in the same. Business matters. As Mr. Strada said earlier, we're talking about a population of 70 million Latinos in this country with a buying power of 1.4 trillion. Our GDP, $4.4 trillion. I mean, that's bigger than, we'd be the fourth largest economy in the world. With 1 minute left, I just want to say that this issue, we need to look at it. And when they say it's business reasons, well, from the business reason, it makes no sense. From the business perspective, for those of us who work with businesses, employers, and entrepreneurs, and debate over what's happening in college universities is not an abstract academic decision. It is a workforce issue, and it is an economic issue, and ultimately it is a Texas competitiveness issue. As we look at it, business needs employees who can work with the people from different backgrounds. They need managers who understand the communities they serve. They need professionals who can communicate effectively with diverse customers and employees, and they need leaders who understand that Texas is not one culture, one history, or one experience. So that I want to thank you for your time. And as Dr. Una said, they keep giving us excuses. Well, it's a business issue. Well, if that's a business issue, it's a poor business issue because it is important. And for Texas to maintain its economic status and to sustain it, we need an educated workforce, and we need that freedom of education for our students. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for bringing up the economic and business impact issues up. It does impact, and education is what prepares our workforce. And so we need to make sure that it's serving our students and our communities. So thank you all for being here today. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and call up the next panel of witnesses. It's Journey Rodriguez, Daniel Gomez, and Adrian Lara. Sorry. Okay, Ms. Rodriguez, will you state your name and affiliation, if any, for the record, please?
Yes, my name is Journey Rodriguez, and I'm here with Somos Mas. I am from Yanaguana, also known as San Antonio, Texas, and I've been passionate about Chicana studies since my early years in high school. I question why we were regulated to a few TEKS or curriculum points in social studies and U.S. history. Once I moved to higher education, I saw Latino studies was offered as a minor at few universities here in Texas. As I began my BA in English at UTSA, there was no required ethnic literature courses as a part of my degree plan. The courses focusing on Black, Chicano, and Indigenous writers were simply listed as electives, making it seem like these stories written by Americans other than old white men were not required literature or seen as a part of the classic literary canon. My advisor strongly urged that I did not pursue Mexican American studies as a minor or did not change my degree plan because it simply was not worth it in their eyes. Every advisor I talked to simply told me it was not worth it, not that it wasn't an option. I got a BA in English, and every elective I took was focused on literature of marginalized communities, people of color. I have waited for years to earn a master's in Chicana studies at my university. However, this has not moved. I've earned a graduate certificate in teaching Mexican American Studies to K through 12, but that master's program, simply named as a Chicana's master's program, has not been moved up the UT system. Even with the name change of Mexican American Studies, it has not been moved up the UT system, as opposed to my university being renamed the UT San Antonio. My current master's program, Bilingual Bicultural Literacy, is one that I've been pushed into. The consolidation of race, ethnicity, gender, and sexuality studies is the start of the erasure of these programs. The words we use are important. They are trying to erase the work and stories of generations before us that have fought for over 30 years to create a space to share our history. I helped organize the first open house for Mexican American Studies at UTSA, and we saw students and their parents overflowing the rooms and filling into the hallways. I helped organize our first Mexican American Student Symposium, and we saw over 100 middle school and high school students eager to learn their history. This is our living history. My grandmother was afraid to call herself a Chicana as she was growing up in schools. My mama took years to learn about the history of this identity and begin to embrace it because she was afraid to do so as a Morena Mexican American woman. I'm a proud Chicana and Boricua scholar who will continue to study Black and Brown stories of resilience and fight for them to be heard in the classroom and the communities beyond, because our existence is resistance.
Mr. Gomez, I'm sorry. Mr. Gomez, will you state your name?
Okay, my name is Daniel
affiliation for the
Gomez,
record?
and I'm speaking as a private citizen. I was born and raised here in Austin. Of course, at the time when I went to school, I could only speak Spanish until I was 6 years old. When I went to school, they beat me, punished me for speaking Spanish. So then I decided not to speak Spanish because I didn't want to get beat, continue to assimilate to speak English. And then, and I did that, and a lot of people here in Austin. And I did graduate from school, and I was lucky through affirmative action to go to school, to go to University of Texas. But when I got there, it's all about trying to speak English right, do the right thing, until I went to Dr. Dr. Tejerina, and then I found out that I was a Mexican American, and he taught me about the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, and that meant so much to me. And I never lost my Espanol. I always tried to learn it on my own, So I graduated from UT, and I went on to, work for a corporate world. But just like they had, the affirmative action, they had affirmative action in the corporate world too. After 2 years that working there, they got rid of you. But when they got rid of me, I remember the guy I worked in technology. I was a network engineer, computer guy. And when I got fired and were not going to be moved up because Mexicans and women weren't allowed in the corporate world, he told me, take what you learn and use it and help your people. And that's what I did. What I did is I started my own little company. And then I went to after school programs, and I went over there and I tackled the issue of the digital divide. And I was teaching our kids how to create computers with just barely before the advent of the internet. It had just started, but it's in those after school programs and taking those young people and teaching these things that was important. So I agree that, we need to fight UT and have that, but I also agree with people like Desiree and Mr. Ricardo Pena that we need community-based education. We need to it's incumbent upon us as parents, as grandparents, to teach our kids, whether UT wants to teach them or not. Tenemos que enseñar cómo es el español, la cultura y la gerencia. Gracias.
Thank you. Mr. Lara, will you state your name and
My name's
affiliation,
Adrian.
if any?
My name is Adrian, and I'm a student at UTSA. I write to record what others erase when I speak, to rewrite the stories others have miswritten about me, about you. Gloria Anzaldúa wrote that. I'm Adrian, a Chicano student at UTSA majoring in Mexican American Studies and Global Affairs. Members of the legislature, I want to make something very clear. There's a difference between celebrating a culture and respecting it. Universities can put our food on the table, play our music, praise our diversity, but if the academic programs that teach our history are weakened, what exactly is being celebrated? You cannot celebrate our presence while consolidating our voice. That is not recognition, that is consumption. Bell hooks called this eating the other. Culture becomes something packaged and made pleasurable, while the history, inequality, struggle, and power behind it are pushed aside. UTSA is a Hispanic-serving institution, yet this year, the Race, Ethnicity, Gender, and Sexuality Studies Department was merged with Bicultural Bilingual Studies. We're told nothing is being eliminated at this moment. Programs will continue, maybe, but who speaks for them now? Who defends their resources? Who determines the future? The name can remain while the independent voice disappears. The courses can remain while the power to protect them weakens. We will not confuse survival with justice or visibility with autonomy. Meanwhile, we watch the funding priorities of UTSA. UTSA's president received a salary increase to over $1 million, plus $250,000 in deferred compensation. So when students hear resources are limited, we ask, resources for whom? When we're told restructuring is necessary, we ask, necessary for whom? In May 2025, ICE agents took construction workers from a UTSA construction project. UTSA police secured the area and provided intelligence. People build universities, communities build them, yet their labor and their humanity can become invisible when inconvenient. That is not separate from education, it is the same question. Whose lives, histories, and voices get protected? That is why academic autonomy matters. That is why we must protect ethnic studies and area studies programs, not as just courses, but as independent departments with the power to govern themselves. Culture without power becomes decoration. History without context becomes mythology. Education without freedom becomes conformity. So I ask the question institutions fear most, and the question you must answer. Who gets to decide what our education becomes?
Thank you very much. Any questions? We appreciate everything you said, and thank you for being here again. I've got and safe travels home. I would like to call up Lauren Guterman and Cameron Samuels. And I'll try one more time for Leonard Bright, but I don't know if that person is here anymore. No, it's being recorded. I'm sorry. Okay. Ms. Guterman, would you state your name?
Sure. Hi. My name is Lauren Gutterman, and I'm speaking in my capacity as a private citizen. I'm also a faculty member at UT Austin, where I've worked since 2015. My research focuses on LGBTQ history in the modern US. I'm currently an associate professor in the departments of American Studies and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies, which will be eliminated and consolidated into the Department of Social and Cultural Analysis on August 16th. On that date, I'll also lose my position as chair of the Department of American Studies, a role I've held since fall 2024. Over the past academic year, I've had a firsthand view of the chilling of speech and violations of academic freedom that are happening at UT. In the fall of 2025, I was asked to serve on a committee on academic structure in the College of Liberal Arts. The committee was tasked with addressing so-called fragmentation within the college, with the goal of creating a smaller number of administrative units. My colleagues and I took our assignment seriously, and we proposed a number of potential alternative administrative structures. None of these proposals were taken seriously. Rather, over time, it became clear that the goal of the committee was to provide a pretense of faculty involvement in the politically motivated, predetermined shuttering of 7 departments within the college, which were to be combined into 2 new units. Following the instruction of the president and provost, the departments of African and African Diaspora Studies, American Studies, Mexican American and Latino Studies, and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies are to be closed and combined in Social Cultural Analysis, and the departments of French and Italian, Germanic Studies, and Slavic and Eurasian Studies are to be closed and combined in a new Department of European and Eurasian Studies. At no point was our committee provided with a clear explanation about why these departments, rather than other departments in the college, with an equivalent, or in some cases even smaller number of undergraduate majors, had to be closed. The elimination of the American Studies Department, along with 6 other departments, has had a clear detrimental impact on faculty and students and has contributed to a chilling of research and teaching around issues of race, gender, and sexuality. As has been widely reported, one of my colleagues, Dr. Yvonne Char-Lopez, a rising star in American Studies who researches the role of technology in the policing of the US-Mexico border, was denied tenure by the president and provost despite strong support for his case from my department, the college, and 8 external reviewers. This decision was made only days after the closure of our department was announced by the president in February. Since then, the Department of American Studies has lost donors. Course enrollments are down. Former students have contacted me in sadness and anger, fearing that the degrees they earned are now meaningless as they were conferred by a department that no longer exists. Current graduate students have expressed concern that they'll lose funding opportunities within the institution or face punishments if their research focuses on issues of race, gender, and sexuality. And instructors in my unit are self-censoring lessons on gender and sexuality, in particular for fear of losing their jobs. Students cannot learn and faculty cannot teach freely under these conditions. For the sake of current and future Texas students, I urge you to resist the political interference in higher education in Texas and to try and reverse, in whatever way you can, SB 17 and SB 37, which have enabled the attacks on racial, ethnic, women's, gender, and sexuality studies we're now experiencing. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Samuels, would you please state your name and affiliation for the record?
Yes. Hi, all. I am Cameron Samuels. My pronouns are they, them, and I am a student at the University of Texas School of Law and the LBJ School. I am also the co-founder and executive director of Students Engaged in Advancing Texas, known as SEAT. We're a movement across Texas advocating for a seat at the table, and we also organize the funerals for the death of academic freedom at a few universities across Texas this spring. This messaging resonates with us because we are grieving. We're mourning what we have lost this year. And so this was a really important strategy to drive that awareness beyond just seeing that this is another protest. That's something where we can be in touch with our emotions, our feelings, build community and solidarity, and also place the pressure on the people who are making these decisions. And we have students at over 25 institutions of higher education across the state. We have chapters, but also campus partners like Austin SDS and Raiders Against Censorship, who have been doing incredible work. We are onboarding so many students this year to engage in the legislature. And what we've been seeing as students is that on our campuses, it's not only an ideological divide over the elimination of ethnic and gender studies, but actually we also face a generational, or in other words, perhaps an institutional clash over our values as students and faculty and what administrators feel they can exercise their power. We have interests in academia, in humanity, and our censored universities are excluding us, but we deserve a seat at the table. I want to note that the definition of the word regent is a person who governs in place of a king. It's by no coincidence that our board of regents at universities across Texas are appointed by a governor who thinks that he is a king. They are not trustees entrusted by the public, by elections that we hold, but rather their loyalty is to the governor, not the public. So therefore, none of their decisions should surprise us. One of the most fundamental challenges that we face is democratic representation in education policymaking. There is no future for robust and healthy civic and education leadership without investing our time, energy, and resources in youth social movements. The people oppressing us recognize this and have come for our schools to exercise their authority and sustain it among generations. I say this because during the interim and during the session, we want you to engage with us. Please keep engaging us. Ask us for input and questions to ask hearing witnesses. Invite us as witnesses to hearings. Encourage your chairs to do that. And please collaborate with us in many different ways on campus, on social media, in our programs. Oppression is not new, and neither is youth leadership in toppling oppressive regimes and constructing democratic infrastructure. So please help us ensure that the university is advanced by the contributions of students and faculty, not hindered into stagnancy by political leaders who seek to maintain the status quo. So I look forward to working with y'all more, and thank you for your leadership.
Thank you so much. And don't wait to be invited. As Bella Abzug once said, if you're not invited in, kick the door down.
100%.
So just come on over and you make yourself and your presence known, and please speak up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oops. No questions, so we're going to turn to the next panel. Thank you all. It's Cristina Solis, Virginia Raymond, and Brenda Sendejo. Ms. Solis, would you state your name and affiliation, if any, for the record? And there's the microphone at the very end.
Thank you. Yes, Cristina Solis, UTSA, Somos Más. I'm a proud Chicana from Yanaguana, San Anto, and a first-generation college graduate of UT San Antonio, where I earned my bachelor's degree in Mexican American Studies and my master's degree in bicultural bilingual studies. I'm here today to share how Mexican American Studies impacted me and how I now carry that forward into the classroom. For much of my life, I believed education was just about earning a degree. Mas taught me that education could also be an act of coming home. Growing up, I didn't see my family or my community reflected in what I was learning. I didn't know that people who looked like me had always been creating knowledge, contributing to the country, and shaping its history. After losing my mom, I was lost. But Mas and the Department of Race, Ethnicity, Gender, and Sexuality Studies gave me a space to keep the memories of my parents and ancestors alive while finding my way back to myself. Through Mas, I began connecting to history in ways I never had before, through the stories, music, food, traditions, and memories of my family carried. I began to understand that these weren't just parts of our everyday lives. They were knowledge, they were history, and they were worth preserving and passing on. In many ways, I wasn't just going through the motions of learning history, I was piecing myself back together through it. And within this community, I found the support and strength I needed to keep going in my own education. Mas didn't teach me to reject anyone else's history. It taught me to question why so much of Chicano history had been left out when there was room for their history and mine too. Through Mas, I was reminded that my culture matters, my family's history matters, and our history is American history. This has changed the way I move through the world. When I teach Intro to Chicano Studies, I give my students what my professors gave me. I don't see them as empty vessels waiting for me to tell them what they need to know. I see them as knowledge holders. They walk into my classroom carrying their own histories, language, memories, family stories, and lived experiences. I want them to know that those things have a place in their education, and I get to watch those connections happen. I watch students recognize something from their own family in what we're studying. I see them go home and ask their parents and grandparents to share stories, then come back to class eager to share what they learned about their own families. Some even talk about how those conversations brought them closer to their parents or grandparents. Let's see. Oh, in those beautiful moments, I see bringing generations together. I see students beginning to understand that their stories carried within their own families are connected to something much larger. And sometimes through those connections, they begin to understand themselves a little differently too. That's what happened to me. And that's why spaces like Mas matter. They give students opportunity to learn history while also asking questions about who they are, where they come from, and where they fit in within it. And perhaps most importantly, they help students understand something I wish I had understood much earlier. My family's history is American history too. The Mas program in the Regs department at UT San Antonio provided a space for me to come home. And now, as a teacher, I have the privilege of creating that space for my students. That is something worth carrying forward. Thank you.
Ms. Raymond, would you please state your name and, sorry.
Thank you very much for listening to us today. I'm Virginia Raymond, and I'm an immigration lawyer. I live in Austin. I want to emphasize something we should all know, that Mexican American studies, African and diaspora studies, women and gender studies are important for everyone, not just important, essential. I went to the University of Texas School of Law. That's a good school of law. And I had a wonderful constitutional law professor, Barbara Aldave of blessed memory. But you know what? It wasn't until 20 years later when I went back to school, to graduate school, that I learned about Hernandez versus Texas, the 1954 Supreme Court case decided the same month as Brown versus Board of Education, that it said that exclusion of Mexican Americans from juries in Texas was unconstitutional, that it violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Imagine not knowing that. Not knowing Mexican American history, not knowing African American history means that our education is incomplete and shallow. I was incredibly privileged and lucky to study Mexican American studies, ethnic studies in my 40s. But I will tell you that until that point, my understanding of Texas history and law was not just shallow, not just incomplete, not just one-dimensional, but I would say cartoonish, because that's what you get when you don't include everybody. It is foolish, it is foolhardy, it is short-sighted to eliminate, to destroy these programs that people have spent decades building. And it is not only immoral and stupid, but it is criminal. I hope that you will do what you can to restore these programs to their previous grandeur and to be a point of pride for all of us. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much. Brenda Sendejo, please state your name.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Brenda Sendejo. I am an alum of UT Austin. I hold a PhD in cultural anthropology and doctoral portfolios in women and gender studies and Mexican American studies. I'm a former tenured professor at Southwestern University. I'm proud to call migrant farm workers, pecan shellers, Mexican immigrants, and fourth generation Tejanas and Tejanos my grandparents. Yet growing up in Corpus Christi, Texas, I was ashamed to be Mexican. I was ashamed of who I was. I didn't know much about my culture or history. I grew up surrounded by a whiteness that was elevated, celebrated, and rewarded. Systemic racism reminded me often that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't matter. The stories and histories of my people and my culture were not present in the schools I attended. Then came 1989. I entered UT Austin as the first person in my family to attend college. I came across a course, Center for Mexican American Studies course with Dr. Martha Menchaca called Mexican American Culture. I was introduced to history, culture, studies, to a world I didn't know existed in books, films, the civil rights movement, to my world. One that, despite my family's love, had been silenced, erased. That course stirred something in me, and in 2003, I decided to enter UT once again, this time as a doctoral student in its Mexican American Borderlands program. And once again, I encountered a life-changing course, Mexican Americans in Texas Politics, developed by historian and prominent Chicana movement activist Dr. Emilio Zamora in collaboration with scholar and movement leader Martha Cotera. These civil rights activists, advocates, feminists, and scholars understood in an embodied way the harm of erasing our stories and our histories. They continued the movement that had taken place in UT in the 60s and 70s, fighting for the development of the Center for Mexican American Studies. Because of their efforts and the efforts of their contemporaries and comrades, the flame within me grew. A light dimmed by systemic oppression was shining once again. That course introduced students to women who were involved in La Razonida Party and the political movements of the 60s and 70s. Their stories became the focus of my doctoral research and now my life's work. I met in person Martha Cotera, Maria Elena Martinez, Rosie Castros, and others. And I want to circle back as I finish up my comments to that little girl who was once ashamed to be Mexican, the first person in her family to attend college. Her journey was made possible in direct ways by ethnic studies and by the movement efforts of people who fought for ethnic studies to exist as something I had the privilege of learning. The seeds grew. I taught courses in Chicana feminisms that I developed and brought to Southwestern University. I witnessed that same flame in my own students during my years as faculty in anthropology and feminist studies. I share my story here today because stories and histories are linked to our full humanity, to the right to exist without shame. My story and those of so many others, like hundreds of my students, illustrate the urgency and responsibility we have to young people, to our families, to our communities, and to the people we serve. This is my story of the moral responsibility, including the responsibility the state of Texas has to help our communities and our youth know their immense worth, to have pride in who they are, to know their stories matter. I would go on to become the first Tejana to receive a PhD in cultural and social anthropology at UT Austin. I would also go on to become the first Tejana to become tenured in Southwestern University's 175-year history. And all of this because seeds were planted within me, seeds that told me I mattered, my stories mattered, my history mattered, and I will forever continue to share that message far and wide for as long as I live. And I will continue to support the efforts of those who are doing the same for others, because I know in my mind, body, and spirit of the power of our histories and stories and remembering.
Thank you so much. And your testimony matters. So I appreciate all of you for being here. I'd like to call the next panel up, please. We have sorry, Jesse Valderrama, I don't know, Alicia Perez Hodge, and John McLernan. I'm having trouble reading the writing here. Thank you for your patience. Hello, Alicia. Let's see, who do I have? Oh, there we go. Okay, we'll get started with Jesse. Please state your name and your affiliation for the record, please. And please excuse members that are leaving the dais. I will remain here as long as it takes to listen to everybody's testimony. I know others have commitments or travel, so we apologize in advance, but I will be here to listen throughout. So please.
Hey y'all, my name is Jesse Valderrama. Before I start the speech, I guess I'll talk a bit about myself. I am a first generation Chicano, and I hail from the campo of North Texas. I'm also a UT alumni, and I am a community activist in the immigrant rights group La Frontera Unida, which is based in South Austin. So I know some people were like, oh, we need to go down to community. We're doing that, so cool. I came here today, though, to express my frustration with the University of Texas, which is on a quest to destroy the ability for Chicanos such as myself to learn about their own history and to understand their own place within it. On February 12th, the president announced the consolidation of the Mexican American Latino Studies Department into a generic Department of Social and Cultural Analysis. Let me be clear, this is not about administrative efficiency. This is about denying Chicanos the right to self-determination. In a state where Latinos make up 40% of the population, let's be clear about what this actually means. The state of Texas does not believe that my history, my struggle, and my culture is important enough to have its own space in the University of Texas. The Mexican American Latino Studies Department teaches what the state of Texas does not want to be taught. It teaches people like me about the Mexican repatriation, how the US government deported over 1 million of my own people, many of them citizens, during the 1930s. It teaches people like me that the current crisis in the streets is not at all unique in the history of the Southwest, but is rather part of a recurring pattern of displacement and terror. Teaching this history is important. Right now, when our barrios are being torn apart by ICE, when politicians are normalizing this violence, we need an education that can put things in perspective to my people. We need a university that refuses to let my people forget what has been done to them. When we lose the Mexican American Latino Studies Department as an autonomous department, my people lose control. The power to hire our own faculty, to set our curriculum, to decide what gets studied, that power goes to people who do not answer to us, who don't serve my community, who have a vested interest in keeping my history buried. You cannot have self-determination while the institutions studying your own people are controlled by others. The students and faculty who fought for the Mexican American and Latino Studies Department 50 years ago understood something fundamental. We have the right to write our own history. This wasn't a request made to university. This was a demand rooted in the ability of our people to forge their own destiny. La Raza built this department, La Raza will defend it, and the university must respect that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Hodge, would you please state your name and affiliation to the record, please?
My name is Alicia Perez Hodge, and I am a coordinator for the Latino Coalition for Excellence in Higher Education. And that's exactly what we are looking for, is to bring back excellence. I'm here because I'm very concerned about the censorship of professors and the doing away with ethnic studies. Professors are working in an oppressive environment where every book, every syllabus, every guest speaker is reviewed for prohibited concepts like DEI, gender ideology, and get this, they must be there to make sure they are conforming and in alignment with the president's priorities. Are they talking about President Trump? Because I'm telling you, we know what his priorities are, is to be a dictator and to be the richest man in the world. Well, I'll tell you that Texas isn't far behind, and Trump plans to do that by hook or by crook. And in Texas, we have plenty of crooks. There's crooked Ken Paxton, there's no bid Greg Abbott, and there's I'm white and I'm right Dan Patrick. Not too far behind is the University of Texas, and that's what we're talking about now, and their administration. Let's take the salary of Provost William in Bowdoin. He came, and that's President Jim Davis's Stephen Miller. In Bowdoin earned $370,000 while being the head of Hamilton School. At UT, his base salary as provost is $875,000, 136% increase. In Bowdoin is the architect of the School of Civic Leadership. He is behind doing away with the ethnic studies. Let me tell you something about that new School of Civic Leadership. Look at their webpage. Oh, they have Dr. Martin Luther King there, and they have Dr. Cornel West. But if you look, there are 44 faculty in there, 34 white men, 5 white women, 88.64% are white, 2 Latinos, 4.5%, and 3 Asians at 6.82%. 0 black professors, 0. They couldn't find any in Houston and Dallas and Austin, in Atlanta. I mean, come on, this is about white supremacy and coming back and oppressing anything that is not white, is not heterosexual, anything that is different, they want to tear down. Well, we will not bend a knee, now or ever. The Latino Coalition for Excellence in Higher Education is here today, and we will continue to be present and to fight against things that we've experienced in the past. I was also part of the Chicano Movimiento. We fought this, and we're going to keep fighting. And like I said, we will never bend a knee.
Mr. McClellan, please state your name and affiliation for the record.
Buenos dias. My name is John McKiernan Gonzalez. I'm a faculty member in the Department of History at Texas State, the director of the Center for the Study Southwest. I'm here as a taxpayer, not a faculty member and not an administrator. And for the first time, me da cosa estar aquí, worried about whether speaking to my elected representative, Lulu Flores, may cost me my job. So these are my taxpayer credentials. I am the author of Fever and Measures, the first book examining the role of the border and the border communities played as policy laboratories for federal public health agencies. And I am the co-editor of Capturing Labor, a history of unfree work in the Southwest. As a published taxpayer, I trade in context and narrative. So let me begin with context. Texas, 32 million people. Of these, 5 million students, 5 million are students in public schools, maybe 400,000 grads a year, all of which is a first-class public university, and SB 37 is an obstacle to that. And the 50,000 slots at UT Austin will never be enough. 125 years ago, the ledge established Southwest Texas State as a normal school to educate teachers for communities across the state. About 30 years ago, President Denise Trott kicked off a forced march to R1 status for SWT. This was enhanced rewards for peer-reviewed publication and increased recruitment of students across Texas. The number of white students has been consistent since then, but the vast majority of enrollment growth has come from Latino households in Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, and rural Texas, whether it's West Texas or the Eagle Shale region. We are a majority woman, majority minority HSI with a national reputation for being veteran-friendly, queer-friendly, and academically and intellectually progressive. Go Bobcats. Right as the university would arrive, Dr. Trouth tragically retired because of a cancer diagnosis. The road to R1 for Texas State was enabled by faculty and a broad Latino commitment to higher education. But Texas State has its own Latino excellence narrative. In the 20s, graduate Elena Zamora wrote the first environmentally themed humanities novel, El Mesquite. In the 30s, some grad whose first teaching job was at Uvalde went on to become senator, Senate Majority Leader, Vice President, President, and San Marcos Gadabout. all with support from poll-taxed Mexican-American communities. In the 50s, migrant farm worker and veteran Tomás Rivera cashed in his GI Bill and then went on to write Y no se lo tragó la tierra. And in the 80s, Dean Jaime Chajín did the Chicano Dean thing long before it was a thing and before it became not a thing in this state. So that's our Latino excellence narrative. The Department of History and the College of Liberal Arts have been great custodians of public trust. Since I've been tenured, almost every other person tenured to associate professor has won national and international book awards. And just last month, my senior colleague, Jimmy McWilliams, recently became a Pulitzer Prize finalist for the life and poetry of James Sanford. Do we talk about this? No. Since SB 37, within a day of its implementation, the university disbanded the Hispanic Policy Network, the Queer Alliance Network, and the Black Faculty and Staff Association. Student support staff were dismissed for saying that the university would continue to support all its students, including minority students. Even then, the Faculty Senate was disbanded. Tom Alter was fired for historian of radical social movement, was fired for talking to radical social movement organizers. A philosophy professor had his contract non-renewed for giving a talk where afterwards a fight broke out. Imagine that was your responsibility if you went to a bar and a fight broke out after you left. A physics professor has faced non-renewal and is unclear because they expressed public support for immigrants, LGBTQIA students, or Palestinian students. My deeply esteemed colleague, the faculty member who led the creation of the Latino Studies minor in 2017, more than 50 years after UT, was dismissed from her position as director of the Center for Gender and Ethnic Studies for supporting a student who asked whether there would be support for Latino students after SB 37. So what have we been doing as taxpayers since receiving enhanced research funds? We talk about Tom's case. We talk about the philosophy department. We talk about who is next and why and what should we do in our classes and what will AI tell us to do? And as a taxpayer, why should I care? Well, we don't talk about our research interests. We don't talk about our research projects. We don't express interest or responsibility for being faculty in a first-gen, progressive, first-class university with a substantial rural, urban, and Latino community. We perform what Russell Volt has wanted, terrorize state employees, not researchers, scholars, and community members. And that outcome, queridos y queridas, is a waste of more than a century of public investment, as well as my taxpayer dollars and yours. Policy proposals, enhanced formal consultation between the Progressive Caucus and faculty and staff representative bodies across the state, a return to a state institution that understands the principle of academic freedom, freedom of assembly, and free speech, and going back to when Texas universities were known globally for being Texas universities and not a place where McCarthy isn't being reinstalled. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your testimony, y'all. I'm going to call the next panel. We've got Dr. David Albert, we've got Gracie Hargrave, and we've got Paloma Lanis. And then after that panel, we have the final panel, Abril Garcia Lynn, Joshua Benson, and Bryce Jones. So you'll be right after this panel. Okay, we have Gracie Hargrave. State your name, affiliation for the record.
Okay, my name is Gracie Hargrave, and I'm a graduate student in the philosophy department at Texas State and a member of the Texas State Employees Union. I am here today to offer testimony to the impact students are facing from the current administrative policies plaguing public higher education institutions in Texas. I am a first-generation student from South Louisiana. I had no family and no support system in Texas prior to moving here to continue my education. The choice of which nationwide degree program I would attend was difficult for me, but I ultimately chose Texas State because of former dedicated faculty member, Dr. Idris Robinson. While completing my various applications, Dr. Robinson reached out to me and offered me much needed mentoring to ensure high quality submissions to other universities. I had not yet accepted admission to Texas State at this time, and I felt truly supported in navigating an academic climate that was completely foreign to me. Dr. Robinson also took a distinguished and genuine interest in my scholarly work, offering to be the advisor for my master's thesis before I had even stepped foot on campus. It was mainly Dr. Robinson's dedication and support to my academic success that led me to attend Texas State University. Had I not bumped into him at a coffee shop before the fall 2025 semester, I would have no idea that he had been terminated from Texas State in June 2025 for policy-compliant remarks he made at a pro-Palestinian conference in North Carolina. He is the only Black philosophy professor in our department, the only faculty member. Dr. Robinson's termination was in alignment with a slew of firings and curriculum changes that are being imposed by the Texas government onto its public higher education institutions. While it might seem obvious how this impacts faculty and staff, I want to make abundantly clear how the student body is impacted by the government's agenda. In fall 2025, I failed my first ever course due to the lack of support and mentorship in an environment with extremely increased and oftentimes extremely unclear rules and standards pertaining to professionalism and academic pressure. I have been forced to entirely restructure my master's thesis, which is a crucial piece of written work that can advance my future career in academia. My overall well-being has suffered, especially being a first-generation student with no real support, as I have consistently had to betray my body and my sense of security to work tireless hours to keep up with the demands of my degree program and my job. I've considered dropping out more times than I can count, as I have been so demoralized in my experience in higher academia, and I oftentimes still contemplate if I even want to continue pursuing my dream job as an educator in higher academia. Everything I've just listed is not small hurdles of adversity to overcome, as they will have long-term impacts on my ability to succeed going forward in my scholarly pursuits. I deeply regret my decision to attend Texas State. The suffering I have undergone was a direct result of Dr. Robinson's termination. It was completely needless and the product of a senseless political agenda. I want to speak on behalf of all the student body at Texas State when I say our most esteemed faculty members' absence is crippling our ability to succeed in our studies. We are missing the foundational support of these faculty members who have often worked tirelessly to aid their students in the trials and difficulties that we experience. It is antithetical to what ought to be the main agenda of any higher education institution, that being the betterment of its students. The students are needlessly suffering. I have needlessly suffered because of the current policies against diversity and academic freedom. Thank you for your time.
Dr. Albert, state your name and affiliation for the record, please.
Yes. My name is Professor David Albert. I'm a government professor at Austin Community College, mostly at the Riverside campus, constituent of Representative Flores, and Riverside campus also in your district. So I teach government. Now, I should mention, if somebody can tell me how I can teach government, US and Texas government, without discussing controversial issues or without discussing race and gender, I'd really like to hear that. But anyway, I'm actually one of the lucky people here because I teach at Austin Community College, and we have no challenges around academic freedom at Austin Community College. We are some applause for Austin Community College. In fact, we just started a center on intersectionality at Austin Community College. So this raises an interesting question for me as a political scientist. We're a mile from University of Texas, Austin, where they're having all of these problems with censorship. We're not having any of those problems at Austin Community College. And I bet a lot of people here know why. The trustees at Austin Community College are elected local officials. They are elected by the people. Whereas, of course, the regents at University of Texas and all these other universities are nominated by Governor Abbott and confirmed by the state Senate. So this brings me to a proposal that I wish to put before you today. Some legislation that maybe you all can consider sponsoring. Why don't we try propose a bill to elect the regents of the university systems here in Texas? This is not a crazy idea. Michigan, Colorado, Nebraska, and Nevada elect their university regents. And I'll add about a dozen states elect community college regents or trustees. This can be done. This can be proposed. I don't expect it to pass in one session, but let's raise the issue. Let's democratize the universities in this state through elections. I mean, everyone tells us that people should, the people should rule, that we should, so let's have some democracy in our universities. Maybe for the first time, elect the trustees or the regents, and let's begin to change our universities for the better. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Alanis, please state your name and affiliation of any for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Paloma Alanis. I'm a member of LULAC, and LULAC, the League of United Latin American Citizens, aligns with the Latino Coalition for Higher Education in this matter. My comments are my own, but I can speak to that. I am a professional emergency manager, a small business owner, an Army veteran, a mother, a homeschool educator, and a Texan. And I am here because I am concerned about what we lose when our universities diminish the intentional study of culture, identity, and history. The debate before us, it may be about programs, but I believe it raises a larger question. What is education supposed to do? Of course, it's supposed to help people learn to earn a living, but education also prepares us to live amongst one another in harmony and in civility, and to understand those people whose histories and experiences may be different from our own. I learned that importance in a very interesting place, Bagram Airfield, Afghanistan. I was there in the United States Army in 2003 at the beginning of Operation Enduring Freedom with armies from all over the world, our Afghan allies, and many others. And our own army was the most diverse one there. We all had the same clothes on, but we all looked so different. We were more diverse than any other country there. And we learned about one another. We trusted one another with our lives, because beneath everything else, everything that made us different, we wanted the very same thing, which was to go home alive and to see our loved ones again. And when someone didn't, we cried those same salty tears as we mourned the blood of our friends who all shared the same color blood. War taught me that our differences don't have to disappear for us to recognize our shared humanity. People do not have to become the same to belong together or to respect each other. That lesson followed me into a career in public service. I worked as an emergency manager at the federal, state, and local levels. And I learned that I had to serve communities across this country, and understanding different cultures and their needs was not theoretical. It was a part of me being a part of serving the entire country, which is what I took an oath to do many times for many levels of government. And most of our children should not have to go to war to learn that lesson. They should be able to learn it in a classroom. Certainly, it should prepare children to make a living. And I understand that, but humanity is important too. That lesson feels important in Texas. I'm a Mexican American. My family goes back generations, and we all know there is no one people story about Texas. Texas is not diminished by the complexity of its history. It is the complexity of its history. We have to stop being afraid to teach about all of our life experiences and to learn from it, not to blame. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all for your testimony. It matters, and we are recording this, so thank you very much. Oh, yes.
Can I make a comment? I appreciate your suggestion, and I will file that bill. And
Director here, we're writing it.
and we'll go to the detention together on the side halls, but we have done that before when we broke the quorum because we wanted to listen to our constituent. So thank you for the idea.
Okay. I'm sorry. The next panel is Abril Garcia Lin, Joshua Bernstein, I think, and Bryce Jones. Hi. Okay, I have Abril. Would you please state your name and affiliation of any for the record, please?
Hello, my name is Abril Garcia Lin. I am a first-gen Chicana student at UTSA.
Give me 1 second. I apologize. I'm going to bring We have one final person, so there won't be a panel of one. I will bring Nayal Lalani up, please. Thank you for waiting so patiently, everybody. So we'll have you start again, and we won't dock you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Hello, my name is Abril Garcia Lin. I am a first-gen Chicana student at UTSA. I'm about to begin my last semester to earn my bachelor's degree in Mexican American Studies with a minor in Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies. I returned to college after almost 30 years. In 1996, I started my first semester at Our Lady of the Lake University. Back then, I was very much interested in learning more about my culture and the history of my people. But as I began to take classes, I found the material to not only be uninteresting, but disconnected from who I am. I felt like I was wasting my time. After I dropped out of college, I began volunteering and working in the nonprofit cultural arts community of San Antonio. It made me feel much more connected to my culture. As time went on, I began to notice that there was a connection forming between my passion for my culture and the classes being offered at UTSA. Through the advocacy and hard work of very knowledgeable and passionate MAS professors at UTSA, I began to see the benefit of obtaining a degree. The classes actually interested me. Finally, I became aware of the Mexican American Studies classes being offered at Alamo colleges. This cemented my decision to return to school. Since 2022, I have worked hard to earn several scholarships and fellowships that have allowed me to focus mostly on school. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my degree until I took my first Women's Gender and Sexualities class at UTSA. This made me understand for the first time in my life the power of education. As I read feminist theorists such as Bell Hooks, Gloria Anzaldúa, and Audre Lorde, to name a few, my mind expanded and my passion grew. I realized I too have something to offer to the body of knowledge that is part of the academy. And I decided I wanted to become a professor. On March 3rd, 2025, I sat in front of my computer listening to my professor speak about transnational feminisms and the contributions made by women of color toward a more just society. A woman in that class decided to type in the chat, "White men are being attacked right now." Our professor asked her to elaborate, and she said that we should not be learning about only women of color because her brother and father are white and they are being attacked. This woman began privately messaging me and other students and the professor, saying slanderous and threatening things and accusing the professor of being racist. We were forced to finish the class asynchronously because although many of my classmates and even our professor documented and reported her behavior to the university, nothing was done. She was able to continue to take the classes as if she had done nothing wrong. That was just the beginning. Now here we are today, after countless meetings and protests to try to stop the dismantling of our race, ethnicity, and gender studies department. I am here today to demand a stop to the assault on our education. I have 2 teenage children. My son is starting his 2nd year at UTSA, and my daughter started her junior year at high school today. My hope for them is that they find their passion in college and that they are not limited in what and how they want to learn. Women's gender and sexuality studies and ethnic studies are among the most important fields of studies because they fill knowledge gaps in other subjects. If our basic education was not slanted toward a white supremacist patriarchal society, then these classes would not be as crucial because this knowledge would be incorporated into basic history, literature, and science, yet they are not. Thank you.
Mr. Is it Bernstein?
Bernstein.
Sorry,
Yeah.
apologize. Please state your name and affiliation, if any, for the record.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Joshua Bernstein. I'm a graduate from UT Austin School of Government, and I graduated prior to most of the, censorship and deconstruction of the institution that we've seen now, that we're living with now. But I'm speaking for myself, but with concern for the future Texas University students who will get a worse education than the one that I'm very grateful that I got. I want to expand on some of the things mentioned by other testimonies, because I think we've done a great job of naming what is being attacked and censored and what's at stake. But as senseless as these attacks are, we've only touched on, I think, the logic behind them, because there is a logic, no matter how gross it may be, from the governor, his donors, and other politicians that support what's going on. They have a vision for Texas and its universities that is founded in white Christian nationalism and upper class superiority. To see this, we just need to look at what has been added rather than what's been dismantled. The Civitas Institute was mentioned. It's a right-wing think tank, part of UT Austin, based in the Littlefield House, just down the road. Founded with money from billionaire Harlan Crow, noted good friend of Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, who gave a talk at the Institute bashing what he calls progressivism. The Institute pushes for the deregulation of markets and the regulation of personal freedoms, especially for marginalized communities. Think tanks like Civitas, much like the Heritage Foundation, provide talking points to our right-wing politicians and media to popularize their harmful policies and lay the groundwork that enables them to do the damage we are seeing now. I think one thing we can do is fully investigate the funding of this institute to ensure we're not paying directly or indirectly for marginalized communities to be attacked. And further, we should push to get the institute removed from our state's landmark university, even as they attempt to legitimize its existence with more benign events. In the same building, a new school was added. I mentioned the School of Civic Leadership with large support from Dan Patrick, a way to expose students to alternative humanities while maintaining fragile conservative notions of Western white supremacy, a way to ensure that future attorneys and politicians are sufficiently protected from openly engaging with the wrong ideas. We need to ensure that this school does not overtake or absorb resources from the existing schools of humanities, like mine, like philosophy, like these other schools that actually care about exposing people to these different ideas. Let's know what we're fighting against, so we know what we're fighting for. So an accessible education truly committed to examining the many perspectives of history, identity, and culture to the end that we gain a more conscious, caring, and rational society.
Ms. Jones, state your name and affiliation, if any, for the record, please.
Hey y'all, my name is Bryce Jones. I currently go to Texas State University. I'm a local organizer in that area, and yes, it's nice to be here with all of y'all today. I didn't prepare a speech. I essentially didn't know if I wanted to testify or not. However, I feel like it's only right if I do. Now, I will give y'all my lived experience and essentially what I'm going through. That's the only thing I'm able to provide. However, whenever I was growing up as a little boy, I went to Cy-Fair, CFISD in Houston, Texas. We essentially didn't have a set curriculum that was focused on intertwining studies of the African American diaspora. We didn't essentially know too much of our history. We was only told through a grapevine of essentially what we knew based from the ancestors and our predecessors of the people in our family. We had a program, it got shut down, whatever. However, I went to Texas State with a mindset of, okay, I'm gonna go to the school, I'm gonna learn something about my heritage and about other people's heritage, where that's Black, Latino, etc., that I didn't get to experience. Whenever I went to Texas State, they essentially told me that we have a set curriculum, and this is the required course, it was 1310 and 1320 of American history, and that's that. And I was like, okay, is there any African American study classes, any Pan-African American study classes? And they said, yes, but it's not worth it. Hearing that really broke my heart, because as a Black American, we have to read our books to figure out our history. We have to hear through the grapevine and through our ancestors to hear our history. And it's sad that the Texas system, based from K through 12, including on a university level, still to this day struggles with the fundamental value of essentially having it where we're able to get easy access to it. It's always loopholes. It's always jumps. And I find it so sad. And I was struggling with my courses because I'm not going to lie with y'all, I was not interested in early American history because I knew that there was untold things in early American history. So I went to my academic advisor and I was like, I'm struggling with this class. I dropped out of it. Is there any alternate courses? And they said, yes, there was a Mexican American course and a Black American course. Texas State does not advertise these courses at all to anybody. I'm a first gen student, and I think that is unacceptable that they don't do that at all. And I think it's very notable that they essentially want us to confirm to this rhetoric of this is how history was perceived and you should believe it. Well, if I want to be a good politician one day, if I want to be a good historian one day, I want to learn history from a whole scale. I don't want to learn what y'all are trying to appoint and tell me to learn, period. And with that being said, that's me. That's the struggle that we have at Texas State. Y'all have a good one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Lalani, please state your name and affiliation, if any, for the record, please.
Thank you. For the record, my name is Niall Lalani. I'm testifying on behalf of myself. I'm from Fort Bend County. I have an academic background in religion and gender studies and a professional background in politics, so I'm very fun at Thanksgiving. I want to thank our elected officials here and the Progressive Caucus. I think I'm the last speaker, so I want to take this time and thank you for giving us the space for all of our voices to be heard. I want to echo some of the same sentiment that we've heard during today's testimony, but I want to echo it as someone that is Muslim, someone that has South Asian heritage, and someone that's operated in this space. It's especially important to me to speak up in this moment because one of the biggest conservative talking points that we're hearing this election cycle is on Islamophobia, is on anti-Muslim sentiment. This is a multi-pronged attack in so many fields, from the State Board of Education and its anti-Muslim rhetoric in the new Bluebonnet curriculum, from the targeting of pro-Muslim voices in higher education, and the social and political targeting of Muslims and immigrants by our state leaders. We're hearing these attacks over and over again. Not only are these attacks unmerited, but they are disgraceful. They harm me, they harm my family, they harm my friends, my neighbors, my community. They harm your friends, your neighbors, your community. It's not right. I want to commend our elected officials here and your allies that have stood for us and will continue to stand for us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you all for being here. We have one last speaker that signed up, Liliana Saldana. And if you'll come up, and thank you all for being here. Liliana? Yeah, of course. And if there was anybody else that signed up that we didn't get, the door is closing in about 3 minutes. So we have two. We have Liliana Saldana, and you're just sitting with her, or what's your? Are you going to testify? Can we get your name for the? Okay. Well, we'll write it down after. So we'll start first with Ms. Saldana, and state your name and affiliation, of any, for the record, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good afternoon. My name is Liliana Patricia Saldana, and I'm speaking on my own behalf and as a private citizen. I'm an associate professor of Mexican American Studies, or MAS, at the University of Texas at San Antonio, where I've been teaching for almost 2 decades. Our MAS program is housed within the Race, Gender, and Sexuality Studies Department, which will be effectively dismantled under the justification of low enrollment, and will be merged with another department by the start of this academic year. The creation of our department was the product of 8 years of dreaming and collaboration between Black and Chicano faculty between 2011 to 2019. These faculty, who were my faculty femtors, built our African American Studies, Mexican American Studies, and Women's Gender and Sexuality Studies programs for decades, often with little to no institutional support. The purpose of creating the Regs department within UTSA's College of Education was, quote, based on the premise that ethnic studies curricula have positive academic and social outcomes for students, and that these outcomes support future educators and educational leaders in their understanding of themselves and the communities they serve, end quote. Over the past 7 years, we've continued to build our new department. We've hired new faculty. We've hired 7 over the past 7 years. We've co-organized a series of public scholar lectures in the community. We had almost 200 people present at our last event. And we've coordinated a number of highly successful campus events like our open houses and youth conference to promote our programs and department. And I will say that we almost had 500 high school and middle school students at our last youth conference. As you can see, students and the community see our programs and our department as an integral part of educational and community life. We are extensions of our communities. In terms of academic development, we've also inaugurated a graduate certificate in Mexican American Studies and have proposed a master's degree, which has been in the making for years, and we're still waiting for it to be approved. Students keep asking when this will finally be approved, so there is a need for these academic programs. One of our most recent proposals includes an ethnic studies teacher pathway where undergraduate students can major in either MAS or African American studies while pursuing their social studies teacher certification. This ethnic studies teacher pathway would be the very first in the state to grow our ethnic studies teachers. The creation of an autonomous ethnic and gender and sexuality studies department reflects our community's struggles for educational justice in a state with a long history of anti-Mexican and anti-Black racism, exclusion, and systemic oppression. A department like Regs is indispensable at a public university like UTSA, which serves a majority Chicanx Latinx student population. Students have the right to a department that houses ethnic and gender studies, as these provide students with the intellectual and community engaged curriculum that affirms their cultural and linguistic wealth while activating their community's genealogies of social change. So as I prepare to start my 17th year of teaching at UTSA, I can't stop thinking of the contradictions I witness around me. Millions of dollars invested in new buildings and the creation of new programs dedicated to AI and cybersecurity, while our department gets dismantled and our programs hang on to dear life. Still, we continue to defend the value of what we've collectively built over the decades because we have witnessed the impact of these academic programs and the holistic development and collective wellness of our communities. These attacks against academic freedom are not just threats to those of us in higher ed. They're threats to our very own communities as our intellectual contributions and community-centered relationships are diminished. But we will not be erased. We will continue to organize, resist this authoritarianism, and defend the right to exist for present and future generations. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have your name, so please state your name and for the record and your affiliation, if any.
Yes. Hi, my name is Cara Alexandra Kolb. I am speaking as a private citizen, but I am also born and raised in Texas. I am the daughter of a Mexican immigrant, and I am also the product of a public education system. I attended public K through 12 from kindergarten until I graduated high school. I attended a public university for undergrad, and I now attend a public university for my PhD, which is in history. I am a former high school teacher where I also taught at a public school, and I now study the history of education, public education as it affects Latino communities. And I think it is so important to talk about, as we now talk about the attacks on higher education, the deliberate, creeping, and continuous attacks on public education that have been occurring for decades in K through 12. Segregation still exists in public schools to this day. It is very, very obvious. It is obvious to the students in the schools, the teachers who teach them. They might not deliberately say those words, but they'll say, oh, you don't want to work at that school. You don't want to send your kids to that school. Make sure when you buy a house, make sure it's on this side of that highway. And it is in every school district in Texas and most in the United States. Sometimes, in the case of San Antonio, where I am from, there are separate school districts, more than any other city in Texas and more than most cities in the United States, and those were originally based on redlining, and they still exist to this day in that same structure. Further, there are still policies within our public schools that act as functional segregation within schools. For example, I was responsible for a year for teaching every English learner in the 9th grade at the high school which I taught at. And those policies made sure that those English learners did not have a single class with native English speakers throughout their entire high school career. They were segregated. They are segregated. Those systems still exist today, and the attacks that have been happening on K through 12 prevent minority students from attending higher education before they even get there, let alone facing the attacks on higher education they have to this day. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that was our final speaker. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for staying and listening. to the testimony that's been provided. I think we've had fantastic turnout and a great testimony throughout this morning. You know, I hope everybody here thinks the same. We are so happy that the Progressive Caucus and the Latino Coalition for Excellence in Higher Education put this on and helped us have this people's hearing so we could truly hear from the voices in the community, the different communities that we've heard from today. As of course, I want to thank, as I said, the people for showing up and for testifying it and making this a really productive and great event. That concludes the people's hearing. Without objection, this meeting is adjourned.
And if you'd like to stay and take a picture with us, we think this is a historic event. We got a lot of people here. Thank you so much on behalf of the Latino Coalition for Excellence in Education. So if we can get people over here, we'll take a picture. Thank you. If you'd like to, please.